I lay on a wooden stretcher in the middle of St. Pill Pavilion, the most prestigious apothecary in Liyue City. My body was a map of agony. Every breath felt like broken glass sliding down my throat. My clothes, once white, were now matted to my skin with dried blood. My arms and legs lay at unnatural angles, twisted and broken by the people I once thought were my family. "I will not save this boy," Master Imo Chuan said, his voice cold and final. He stood in his elegant silk robes, looking down at us with pure disgust. My mother, Liyue, stood before him in her rough cloth dress. She looked so thin, worn down by years of hardship. My little sister huddled beside her, clutching mother's skirt, her eyes wide with terror as the crowd gathered to watch our humiliation. "Master Imo Chuan," my mother begged, her voice cracking. "You are the greatest alchemist in the city. I beg you, please save my son. I'll do anything." Imo Chuan didn't even blink. He looked at me, lying there like a broken dog, and snorted. "Liyue," I said no. "Leave St. Pill Pavilion immediately, or I'll have my guards throw you out." The guards started closing in. I could hear the whispers from the other customers. They were like stabs from a knife. "Isn't that Yi Wushuang? The Yi family heir?" one man whispered. "He just married into the Yun family yesterday. How did he end up like this? The Yi family is cursed. The men never live past 40. They used to be top tier in the Qingyan Empire, but now they're nothing. This kid is the last of them, and look at him. He's finished." I felt the wood of the stretcher beneath my fingers. I tried to move, but the pain was blinding. "Mom," I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. "Forget it. Let's go." My mother turned to me, her eyes red and overflowing with tears. Before she could speak, a cold, sharp voice cut through the hall. "Liyue, Yi Wushuang. How do you still have the face to come here and beg for medicine?" I stiffened. I knew that voice. I looked toward the entrance and saw a group of people walking in. At the center was a woman in a pale purple dress, her long black hair flowing over her shoulders. She looked like a noble ice lotus, beautiful and untouchable. It was Yin Qinghua, my wife. "Yi Wushuang," she said, her voice rising so everyone could hear. "You are truly a heartless wolf." The crowd went silent, leaning in to catch every word. Master Imo Chuan stood back, a calm expression on his face as if he already knew the script. "My Yun family remembered the help your ancestors gave us," she continued, her eyes cold. "We didn't want to see the Yi family go extinct. I begged my father to let you marry into our family just to keep you alive. And how did you repay us? On our wedding night, you snuck into my sister's room. You drugged her. You tried to violate your own sister-in-law." A man beside her, a member of the Yun family, stepped forward and pointed a finger at me. "He's a monster." Second Miss was terrified. "She's been waking up screaming all night. And the eldest Miss was punished by the clan head because of you. She knelt in the ancestral hall all night, praying for your life. If she hadn't begged for mercy, you wouldn't just have broken bones and ruined meridians. You'd be dead." The crowd erupted. The insults flew like stones. "Scum! Beast! He deserves to be torn apart." I looked straight at Yin Qinghua. This was the woman who had claimed to care for my family for 3 years. This was the woman I had trusted. Finally, the mask was off. "Yin Qinghua," I hissed, my teeth clenched against the pain. "Everyone in this city knows I have no talent. I've trained for 3 years and can't even feel spiritual energy. I haven't even hit the first stage of body refining. Your sister is at the 4th stage. You're telling me a normal person like me managed to drug and overpower her?" I laughed, a wet, bloody sound. "I know why you did this. You thought the Yi family still had some hidden treasure. Now that you've realized we have nothing left, you want me gone. But kicking me out wasn't enough. You had to frame me so I'd die in disgrace." I looked her in the eye. "I am a fool. I'm a fool for ever believing in the kindness of the Yun family." Yin Qinghua's eyes turned red instantly. She trembled, her hand flying to her chest as if she'd been struck. "Yi Wushuang, I treated you with all my heart. And now, you slander me like this?" Tears streamed down her face. She looked so fragile, so wronged. The crowd went wild, cursing me even louder for attacking such a virtuous woman. I watched her performance with a bitter smile. She was good. She had fooled me for 3 years. "Qinghua," my mother suddenly rushed forward, grabbing Yun Qingyue's hands. Xingyue, there must be a mistake. Please, just save Wushuang. I'm begging you. Yun Qingyue looked away, sighing with fake helplessness. Auntie, it's not that I won't help. It's just that he... Thud. My mother dropped to her knees. She began to slam her forehead against the hard stone floor. Again and again. Blood began to smear the tiles. Her hair fell into her face, messy and wild. I beg you, my mother wailed, the sound of her head hitting the floor echoing through the silent pavilion. Please, save my son. There's been a mistake. I know it. Mom, I screamed. My vision turned red. I gripped the edges of the wooden stretcher so hard my fingernails ripped, blood oozing from my fingertips, but I didn't feel it. My bones were shattered. My meridians were destroyed. But as I watched my mother bleed for me at the feet of the woman who destroyed us, a cold, dark fury ignited in my soul. If I survived this, I swore to the heavens, I would make them pay. I stood up. It was a miracle, a sheer act of will that defied the agony screaming through my shattered bones. I tottered toward my mother, my legs shaking like reeds in the wind. I reached out and gripped her arm with everything I had left. Mom, I roared, my voice raw and burning like acid. The fury in my chest felt like it was literally setting my blood on fire. I would rather die than beg this poisonous woman. We will never ask the Yun family for anything. My mother, Lu Yuemei, was a mess of tears and heartbreak. Wushuang, my poor son, she choked out, her voice thick with grief. Next to her, my little sister, Feifei, glared at Yun Qingyue. Her tiny face was twisted with rage. My big brother was framed. Yun Qingyue, you're a bad woman. Everyone in the Yun family is evil. You brat, shut your mouth. A young man from the Yun family, Yunhe, stepped forward. Before anyone could react, he swung his hand and slapped Feifei across the face. The sound of the impact cracked through the air. Feifei's cheek turned a violet, swollen red instantly. Yunhe, I let out a low, guttural growl. My eyes were bloodshot, staring at him with a murderous intensity that felt like it could stain the world red. If you ever touch my sister again, I will kill you. Even if I have to become a ghost to do it, I will end you. Do you believe me? Yunhe flinched. He looked into my eyes and saw something so dark and terrifying that he actually stepped back, his face turning pale. I didn't give him another glance. I took my mother's and sister's hands, my body trembling with every movement, and turned my back on the pavilion. We walked away without looking back. Yun Qingyue, I called out one last time. My voice was cold, hollow, and utterly devoid of emotion. Good and evil always meet their end. The only question is whether the debt is paid early or late. Today is just the beginning. I will settle this. We left the sacred pill pavilion as three lonely figures, followed only by the mocking laughter and insults of the crowd. Inside, Yunhe watched us go, his eyes narrowing. Miss, that kid is full of hate. Should we just get rid of them now? Yun Qingyue let out a small, mocking laugh. No. If the Yi family dies now, everyone will blame us. It's bad for our reputation. She smiled, a cold, beautiful mask. He couldn't even reach the first level of body refining in 3 years. Now that he's a cripple, he's less than trash. Once word gets out about today, who in Liyue City would dare help him? Death is only a matter of time. Yunhe grinned, nodding frantically. You and your father are brilliant. Now the engagement is officially void, and you can marry young Master Qin Hao without any baggage. The fake sadness had vanished from Yun Qingyue's face. She looked bored. I thought the Yi family might have some hidden treasure left over from their glory days. Turns out they really are penniless. What a waste of 3 years. Yi Wushuang isn't worth another thought. Of course, Yunhe added. Qin Hao is from a branch of the imperial capital's Qin family. He's a genius. He was just scouted by the main clan to return to the capital. He's the perfect match for you. Qin Hao is just a stepping stone, Yun Qingyue said confidently. She watched our retreating forms and added one more thing. The house the Yi family is living in. That belongs to us too, doesn't it? We can't kill them, but there's nothing wrong with taking back what belongs to the Yun family. Yunhe's eyes lit up with malice. I'll handle it right away. On the other side of town, my mother led us slowly back toward our home. My body felt like it was falling apart with every step. Fei, does it hurt? I asked, looking at my sister's swollen cheek. It doesn't hurt, she said, trying to be brave. She gave me a small, shaky smile. Big brother hurts more than me, and you aren't crying. So Fei won't cry either. I forced a smile back. That's right. We don't cry. There's nothing worth crying over. My mother listened to us, her heart breaking in silence as she fought back her own tears. The Yi family had once been legendary, but now we were nothing. Our home was tucked away in a remote corner of the western city. It was a simple place, empty and impoverished. As we entered the courtyard, a man in his 30s, pale and thin, hobbled out on a crutch. This was my uncle, Yi Qingfeng. He looked like he had been sick for years. Sister-in-law? How did it go? He asked, his voice weak. My mother just shook her head. My uncle's fists clenched. He saw the blood on her forehead and the state I was in. He understood immediately. A curse hung over the men of the Yi family. My father had died at 40. My uncle was 38, and he looked like he was already at death's door. It was as if we were destined to wither away before our time. Uncle, it's okay, I said, trying to sound upbeat. I'm still alive. Our family is still together. That's what matters. Yi Qingfeng looked at me with deep sorrow. He couldn't even find the words to respond. Mom, I'm hungry, Fei said, trying to change the subject. I'm a bit hungry too, I added. Where's Uncle He? I'm here, young master, a voice called out. An old man with white hair and one blind eye emerged from a side room. This was Uncle He, our loyal old servant. He had stayed with us through everything, even when we couldn't afford to pay him a single coin. Uncle He, help me get some water to the backyard, I said. I need to wash up. Yes, of course, he whispered. He turned away quickly, wiping his eyes so I wouldn't see him cry. I went to the backyard and slowly peeled off my blood-soaked clothes. There wasn't a single patch of healthy skin left on me. My flesh was torn, and in some places, the white of my bone peeked through the red. I refused help from anyone. I stood there alone, using a cloth to gently dab at my wounds. My bones were broken. My meridians were destroyed. I knew the truth. I was dying. Even if a master doctor tried to save me, the Yun family wouldn't let me live. I looked toward the back wall of the courtyard. There stood a stone statue, about 10 feet tall. It was crumbling, weathered by 500 years of neglect. This was Yi Wentian, the founder of the Yi clan. Over the centuries, rival families had raided our home countless times, searching for hidden treasures. They had kicked this statue, spat on it, and searched every inch of it, finding nothing. Now, it was just a hunk of mossy stone. I walked over to the statue, my movements stiff and painful. I began to wipe away the dust and weeds covering the base. My parents had named me Yi Wushuang, the unrivaled. It felt like a cruel joke now, but as I touched the cold stone, something deep inside me stirred. My parents named me Yi Wushuang, the unrivaled. They hoped I would be like our ancestor, a man without equal who would lead the Yi clan back to glory. But those dreams felt like a cruel joke. For 3 years, I had tried to cultivate, but I couldn't even draw a single breath of spiritual energy into my body. My memory was a disaster. I would memorize a technique in the morning and forget it by noon. With a body like this and a mind that wouldn't hold knowledge, how could I ever lead my family? Mom, Uncle, Fei, I'm sorry, I whispered, my voice thick with blood. I looked up at the weathered statue of our founder. If there was a next life, I promised myself I wouldn't let anyone bully us again. I coughed violently, spraying a mouthful of fresh, hot blood directly onto the stone base. My face turned deathly pale. I could feel the cold grip of death tightening around my throat. My vision blurred. Next life, I choked out. Then, my strength failed. My knees hit the dirt with a heavy thud. I slumped against the cold stone, and my breath stopped. I was dead. But as my body grew cold, something impossible happened. The blood I had sprayed onto the statue didn't drip. It vanished, sinking into the stone as if the statue were drinking it. A sudden, blinding flash of crimson light erupted from deep within the rock. It shot out and slammed into my lifeless chest, disappearing into my heart. I opened my eyes. I wasn't in my backyard anymore. I was standing in a vast, dark void. The agonizing pain that had been tearing my body apart was gone. I felt light, energized, and more alive than I had ever been. Then, the floodgates opened. Memories, thousands of years of them, slammed into my brain. The sheer volume of information was so intense I thought my head would explode. I am Yi Wushuang of the Yi family in Liyue City, I muttered, clutching my head. No, I am Yi Wushuang, the unrivaled emperor, leader of the 10 great emperors of the firmament heaven. The two identities merged. I stood there in the silence for a long time until my eyes cleared and my aura shifted. I wasn't just a dying boy anymore. In my past life, I was the head of the 10 emperors. I was a master of alchemy, formations, and weapon forging. I was the greatest swordsman to ever live. The world called me unrivaled because no one could match my power. I had treated the other 9 emperors like my own brothers. I shared my secrets with the Chaos Emperor and helped the Primordial Emperor fix his flawed formations. I even considered Li Wenxin, the 10th Emperor, my closest confidant. But they betrayed me. They couldn't kill me, so they used a forbidden sealing technique to trap me in the God Burial Mountain, a place of eternal darkness. They wanted to bury me alive for all eternity just to steal my treasure, the 9-layered God-refining tower. They thought they had won. But the tower had fused with my soul. During those millions of years of imprisonment, I discovered a divine technique within the tower called the 9-turn undying art. It allowed me to peel away my primordial spirit, dividing it into 9 separate parts to escape the seal. A primordial spirit can't survive without a body, so each part of me underwent a transformation, being reborn as a human. Over the eons, my 9 spirits lived different lives across the firmament heaven. But my spirits were too powerful for mortal bodies to handle. Eventually, each one would fall into a deep sleep to preserve itself. Once all 9 spirits were out, my true soul was finally able to reincarnate. That was how I became the useless Yi Wushuang of Liyue City. My talent had been suppressed because my soul was incomplete and my memories were locked away by the tower's power. Until now. This statue of Yi Wentian wasn't just a monument. It was my 9th reincarnated spirit, left here centuries ago to wait for me. My blood had acted as a key, awakening the spirit and merging it back into my body. The seal on the tower was broken. My memories were back. I realized the irony. Yi Wentian, the legendary founder of my clan, was actually me. You bastards, I hissed, my heart burning with rage. I treated you like family, and you threw me into a hole to rot. And Yun Qingwei, you destroyed my life and spat on my name. The debt starts now. As my anger simmered, I felt my body changing. The merger didn't just give me memories, it healed me. The fatal wounds vanished. A massive surge of spiritual energy began circulating through my veins, polishing my organs and strengthening my bones. In this world, cultivation started with the body refining realm. It had 9 levels, focusing on tempering skin, flesh, bones, and organs. For 3 years, I couldn't even reach level 1. Now, the energy from the statue was pouring into me like a flood. I felt my strength exploding. Level 1. Level 2. Level 3. I blew past the barriers that had held me back for years. Level 5. In a single breath, I had accomplished what others took years to achieve. Normally, a level 5 warrior had the strength of 36 bulls. But as I felt the power coursing through my new meridians, I knew I was far stronger than that. I opened my eyes and my consciousness returned to the real world. I was back in the backyard, standing before the crumbling statue. But I wasn't the same boy who had crawled here to die. I stood before the crumbling statue, my breath steady for the first time in years. I looked at the cold stone eyes of my past self. When I returned to the azure heavens, I thought, I will make the world itself descend into the underworld. And the Yun family? They would be the first blood I spilled on this path of slaughter. I forced the rage deep down, letting it simmer into a cold, hard resolve. I had work to do. I headed back toward the Qian mansion, the residence where my family lived. As I entered the courtyard, I saw a group of about a dozen Yun family guards. They were armed, their faces twisted with arrogance. At the front stood a young man named Yun He. He was sneering at my grandfather, Yi Qingfeng, and my mother, Lu Yuemei. My little sister, Yi Feifei, was trembling beside them. "What are you doing here?" my mother demanded, her voice shaking. Yun He laughed, a cruel, high-pitched sound. "What am I doing?" Lu Yuemei, You have the nerve to ask that. Yi Wushuang committed a crime against heaven. Our eldest miss is kind enough not to kill him. But don't forget, this mansion belongs to the Yun family. We only lent it to you. Now, I'm taking it back. My grandfather leaned heavily on his cane, his hand trembling with fury. Yunhee, has your family no shame? Your patriarch took our clan's ancient sword in exchange for this house. Now you want to break the deal? Yunhee smirked and reached into his robe. He pulled out a rusted, pitted iron sword and tossed it onto the dirt. You mean this piece of junk? We thought it was a treasure, but it's just scrap metal. Here, take it back. Now, get out before I have to get physical. My sister, Fei Fei, clung to my mother's dress. You'll get what's coming to you, she cried out. The Yun family will pay? Yunhee stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. Little brat, you've got a sharp tongue. The only ones paying are the Yi family. You've been rotting for years. Now move. My mother blocked his path, her face pale but firm. We will leave. You don't need to push us. Yunhee stopped. He looked my mother up and down. She was over 40, but she had once been a beauty from a great family in the capital. Even after years of hardship, she carried a certain grace. A disgusting glint appeared in Yunhee's eyes. Why bother staying with this dying family? Yunhee leaned in, his voice dropping to a greasy whisper. Why not follow me instead? I'll take real good care of you. Yunhee, my mother snapped, her face flushing with disgust. Have some self-respect. Self-respect? I don't think so. He lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. You've got nowhere to go anyway. Might as well let me have some fun. You bad man. Fei Fei screamed. She lunged forward and bit down hard on Yunhee's arm. You little beast. Yunhee roared. He raised his palm, channeling his energy. He was at level 4 of the body refining realm, possessing the strength of 18 bulls. A strike like that would crush a child's skull. Die. Fei Fei, my mother shrieked, closing her eyes. The blow never landed. Yunhee's hand stopped inches from Fei Fei's head, frozen in midair. He strained, his face turning purple, but he couldn't move an inch. Fei Fei opened her eyes and looked past Yunhee. Her face lit up with shock. Brother? I stood there, my hand clamped around Yunhee's wrist like a vice. I leaned in close to his ear, my voice sounding like it came from the bottom of a frozen lake. I told you, if you touched my sister again, I would kill you. The courtyard went silent. Everyone stared at me. I was supposed to be a cripple. I was supposed to be dying. But here I was, standing tall, without a single scratch on me. Wushuang, my grandfather gasped, his eyes wide. Crack. I tightened my grip. A sickening sound of snapping bone echoed through the yard. Yunhee let out a scream like a slaughtered pig. He collapsed to his knees, his face turning white as paper. Yi Wushuang, let go, he howled. Do you want to die? I'll kill your whole family. I looked down at him, my eyes cold and empty. Is that so? Try it. Yunhee tried to circulate his power to break free, but it was useless. My hand felt like forged steel. He looked at me with pure terror. How was this possible? I reached down and picked up the rusted iron sword he had thrown away. The moment my fingers touched the hilt, the air around me changed. To everyone else, it was a piece of junk. To me, it felt like an extension of my own soul. What are you waiting for? Yunhee screamed at his guards. Kill him. Kill him now. A dozen guards drew their swords and rushed me. From this day forward, I said, my voice carrying across the yard, anyone who insults the Yi family will be executed. I didn't let go of Yunhee. I dragged him with me as I stepped toward the first guard. The man swung a heavy blade at my head. I tilted my body just enough to let the blade whistle past my ear. Then, I thrust the rusted iron sword forward. Squelch! The blade sank deep into the guard's chest. I pulled it out, and he slumped to the ground, blood staining the stones. The rest of them swarmed me. I moved like a ghost. These men were level 3 and level 4 warriors, but to me, they were moving in slow motion. A guard swung a heavy iron staff down at me. I didn't dodge. I met it with my sword. Clang! The force of my strike sent a shock wave through his arms. The guard's legs buckled, and he slammed into the ground, his knees shattering the stone tiles. Die, I whispered. I brought the sword down, slicing through his neck. Blood sprayed across my face. I didn't blink. I moved to the next one and the next. The courtyard turned into a slaughterhouse. Arms were severed. Heads rolled. The smell of copper filled the air as internal organs spilled onto the pavement. I was a demon. I was unstoppable. Every strike was lethal, every movement calculated. One by one, the guards fell until the screaming stopped. My family stood frozen, watching me in absolute horror. They didn't recognize the boy standing in the middle of the carnage. I was still holding Yunhee by the wrist. He was staring at the pile of corpses, his mind completely broken. This can't be happening, he whimpered. I raised the blood-stained iron sword and pressed the tip against his throat. The cold metal bit into his skin. I looked him dead in the eye. Kneel. He didn't hesitate. He hit the ground with a heavy thud. I increased the pressure on his arm. Crack. His other arm snapped like a dry twig. He let out a muffled sob, his spirit completely crushed. Everything they took from us, I was going to take back, starting with his life. Yunhee was shaking so violently I could hear his teeth chattering. He looked at me like I was a demon crawled straight out of hell. His pride was gone, replaced by a desperate, pathetic terror. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was wrong, he shrieked, his voice cracking. Please, spare me. It was the eldest miss. She ordered me to do it. It was all Yun Qinghua. I didn't care for his excuses. I raised my sword, the cold edge pointing directly at his throat. My voice was flat, devoid of any mercy. You're just the beginning, I said. I swung. The blade cut through his neck with a sickening whistle. Yunhee's head spun through the air before thudding onto the stone tiles. Silence fell over the courtyard. It lasted a long time until my sister, Yi Feifei, let out a small, trembling sob. I gripped the hilt of my bloody sword and walked toward her. I knelt down, my boots splashing in the red puddles, and reached out to pinch her cheek gently. I forced a warm smile onto my face. It's okay now, Feifei, I whispered. From today on, Big Brother will protect you. No one will ever hurt you again. My mother, Lu Yueme, stepped forward. She looked at me with a mix of relief and confusion. I was her son, but I was also a stranger. Wu Shuang, your injuries, she stammered. And your cultivation, what happened? I looked at my mother, my sister, and my uncle Yi Qingfeng. I had already prepared an explanation. I couldn't tell them about my past life as the unrivaled heavenly emperor just yet. Don't worry, mother. I'm still the same Yi Wu Shuang, I said, my voice steady. But something happened in the backyard while I was dying. I received a legacy from our ancestor, Yi Wentian. That power brought me back to life and gave me this strength. Besides, I've been practicing for 3 years, even if I couldn't absorb qi. My body was ready. In my past life, I was an orphan. Now that I had a family, I realized how much I cherished them. I knelt before my mother and bowed my head to the ground. I'm sorry for making you live in fear, I said. But I promise you, I will take back everything that belongs to the Yi family. My mother wiped her tears and pulled me up. As long as you're alive, that's all that matters. The heavens haven't abandoned us. Uncle Yi Qingfeng nodded, his eyes red with emotion. Good boy, just stay alive. I knew the history of this family. 500 years ago, the Yi family was the peak of the Qingyun Empire. But now, we had fallen into the dirt. Someone had been sabotaging us from the shadows, and I intended to find out who. Mother, uncle, let me clean up these bodies, I said with a light chuckle to ease the tension. I've just recovered, and I'm starving. Why don't you go make some food? While my mother went to the kitchen, I worked with our old servant, Hebo, to drag the corpses away. By noon, we were all sitting around a battered wooden table in the main hall. When I saw the meal, thin rice porridge and a few salty pickles, I froze. Wu Shuang, I'm sorry, my mother said quickly. We don't have any money or grain left. I looked at Feifei. She was so thin, her little face pale. I rubbed her head. Feifei is growing. She can't eat like this. Don't worry, mother. I'll find a way to get us some real food this afternoon. My mother looked worried, and Uncle Yi Qingfeng sighed. Wu Shuang, Yunhee was sent by Yun Qinghua. If he doesn't return today, the Yun family will come for revenge tomorrow. We can't fight them. If they send a high-level body refining master, we're finished. He's right, my mother added. Maybe we should leave tonight. Now that you've recovered, we can start over in another city. I looked at them both, my expression turning grim. I'm back now. Liyue City is about to change. We aren't going anywhere. If they dare to come, I'll kill them. They stared at me, stunned. Trust me, I continued. I have a plan. The Yun family won't be able to touch us. Remember, I came back from the dead. Our ancestors are watching over me. I have ways to deal with them that I can't explain yet. Seeing my confidence, they finally relaxed. If I could survive death and slaughter a dozen guards, maybe I really did have a secret weapon. After lunch, I went back to the courtyard. I needed money, and I knew how to get it. But first, I needed a proper technique. I had killed those guards using raw strength and my combat instincts, but that wouldn't be enough against real masters. My mind was a library of the most powerful techniques in the world. For my current level, level 5 body refining, I needed something that focused on physical power. I sat cross-legged and searched my memories until I found it, the Tiger Roar Fist. It was a yellow-grade technique, perfect for my current stage. It had 9 moves based on a tiger hunting: clawing, seizing, breaking, locking, chopping, shocking, roaring, pouncing, and slashing. My body had been tempered by the spirit energy from my soul fusion, making it tough enough to handle the strain. I closed my eyes. Inside my mind, a massive, pitch-black 9-story pagoda began to rotate. This was the 9-layered, god-resisting pagoda, a treasure I had died for in my previous life. I felt my consciousness slip away from the backyard and into the first floor of the tower. Inside, the world was vast and empty. Best of all, time moved twice as slowly here. I dropped into a stance, my hands curling into claws. I lunged forward, my fingers tearing through the air with a whistle. I didn't just need to know the moves. I needed to make this new body remember them. I began to strike, over and over, turning myself into a weapon. This was the true power of the 9-layered, god-resisting pagoda. I lunged forward, my fingers curling into the tiger's claw. I transitioned into the tiger's seize, then the tiger's break. Every move of the Tiger Roar Fist exploded from my body, each strike accompanied by a sharp sonic boom. In that moment, I wasn't just a man practicing a technique. I was an unstoppable beast. I stayed inside the pagoda for 4 hours, which felt like an eternity of training, but only 2 hours had passed in the real world. I focused my mind and willed myself out. My consciousness snapped back into my body, and I found myself standing in the backyard of the Yi family estate. I had completely mastered all 9 forms of the Tiger Roar Fist. My eyes felt bright, and my senses were sharper than ever. I stood up, ready to head out, but I couldn't leave my family unprotected. I walked over to the decaying statue of our ancestor, Yi Wentian. I stretched out my hand, letting a sliver of spiritual energy flow into the stone. Suddenly, the statue radiated a blinding light. For beams of energy shot into the sky, taking the forms of the azure dragon, the white tiger, the vermilion bird, and the black tortoise. They scattered to the 4 corners of the estate and vanished. Inside the house, Uncle Yi Qingfeng, my mother, Fei Fei, and old butler He all jumped. They felt a sudden, heavy shift in the air, as if the entire estate had been wrapped in an invisible shield. The statue was actually carved by my 9th soul in my previous life. It contained a hidden formation called the 4 Spirits Sky Sparrow Array. At its peak, this array could kill a heavenly stellar realm master instantly. The statue was old and crumbling now, so the power was faded, but it was still more than enough to slaughter any spirit arterial realm intruder who dared to step foot inside. With this protection in place, I finally had the confidence to leave. I headed to the front hall. "Brother, where are you going?" Fei Fei asked, rushing up to me. "I'm going to earn some silver," I told her, patting her head. "You, Mom, Uncle, and Butler he stay inside. I'll be back by evening, and I'll bring you something good." Fei Fei's big eyes sparkled with excitement. "I want the candied haws from the old shop in Qingxi." "You got it," I promised. I walked out of the Yi estate, leaving my worried family behind. I knew the Yun family would come looking for me eventually, but for now, I needed resources. Liyue City felt both familiar and strange as I walked the streets I had lived on for 16 years. I took a deep breath and headed straight for a specific district. I stopped in front of a massive, imposing building with a grand entrance. The Soul-Slaying Hall. This was a unique place. In Liyue City, for major families, the Yun, Wei, Qin, and the city lord's Wang family controlled the 4 main districts. Then there were places like the Sacred Pill Pavilion, which had backing from the imperial capital and held a status above everyone else. The soul-slaying hall was different. No one knew who was behind it, but it had existed here for years, and no one dared to provoke it. It was a place for desperate people. If you had money, you could hire an assassin. If you had strength, you could make a fortune. I stepped into the main lobby, and a wall of noise hit me. The air was thick with the smell of sweat and tension. A guard, over 2 meters tall and built like a brick wall, blocked my path. He gripped a heavy blade and looked down at me with a sneer. "What do you want, kid?" he growled. "I'm here for the life and death arena," I said calmly. The guard stared at me. I was 16, and my body still looked a bit thin and fragile. He burst out laughing. "Do you even know what that place is? Once you step into that ring, even if you're from one of the 4 major families, if you die, no one is held responsible. You're just meat." "I know," I replied. My voice didn't waver. The guard blinked, his laughter dying down. He shrugged and gestured for me to follow. He led me through a maze of hallways until we reached a vast underground stadium. The noise here was deafening. Shouts, curses, and bloodthirsty howls echoed off the stone walls. In the center were several square stages. On one of them, a fighter's head exploded from a punch just as we walked by. Blood sprayed across the stone. The crowd didn't flinch. Some cheered wildly while others cursed because they had lost their bets. I watched the scene with a blank face. The guard glanced at me, clearly surprised that I wasn't shaking in my boots. "Gung Yu, who is this?" a smooth, melodic voice asked. A woman approached us from the side. She wore a long, pale purple dress that flowed to the floor, highlighting her tall, elegant figure. Her face was stunning, with fiery red lips like a blooming rose. The neckline of her dress was daringly low, showing off curves that made the nearby fighters steal quick glances before hurriedly looking away, as if they were afraid of her. "Miss Xiao," the guard said respectfully. "This kid says he wants to join the life and death arena. I was bringing him to register." "Him." Miss Xiao looked me up and down. Her eyes sharpened. "You're Yi Wushuang, aren't you?" I nodded. She waved the guard away. "I'll handle this. You can go." She led me to a private room behind the arena, shutting out the roar of the crowd. She turned to me with a playful, dangerous smile. "Yi Wushuang, I heard you had quite a rough morning at the Sacred Pill Pavilion. They say you tried to assault your own sister-in-law on your wedding night." She leaned in close, her scent filling the air, her chest nearly brushing against me. "Tell me, young Master Yi, how do I look? Am I more tempting than Yunxian?" I didn't blink. I didn't move. I just looked her in the eye. I heard the soul-slaying hall was a place for money and strength. My personal life shouldn't be your concern. She laughed, pulling back slightly. "Just a joke. Don't be so serious. You're sure you want to do this?" "I am." "Interesting," she whispered. "The rules are simple. You fight people in your own realm. For level 1 to level 3 body refining, a win gets you 100 silver taels. If you lose, you're dead, so you won't need the money anyway." She pulled a wooden token from the desk and handed it to me. It was engraved with the number 97. "Win, and you bring this back for your pay. Die, and I'll clear the tab." I took the token and hung it from my belt. "One question," I said, looking at her. "How much for a win at level 5? Mo Xiao froze. Her eyes widened with genuine surprise, and then a playful, intrigued smile spread across her face. "Interesting. Truly interesting," she whispered, looking me up and down. "Level 5, you say? A win at that level earns you 500 silver taels. Then arrange a life and death match for level 5, I said without hesitation. "I am currently at the 5th stage of body refining." Her eyes lit up with a sharp, predatory glint. "Deal." I reached into my robe. "I assume there's no rule saying I have to show my real face here?" "None at all," she replied. I pulled out a mask I had prepared and slid it over my face. It felt cold against my skin, hiding the identity of the fallen young master. "I've heard the soul-slaying hall keeps its secrets. I trust you won't be telling anyone who I am. From this moment on, I am number 97. My name is Mie Yun." Mo Xiao was the head of this branch. She wasn't stupid. She knew exactly what had happened between me and the Yun family this morning. She understood why I needed a pseudonym. Mie Yun, destroy the Yuns. The name said it all. "Don't worry," she said, her hips swaying as she walked toward the door. I'm looking forward to your performance. She led me out to one of the arenas. The roar of the crowd hit me like a physical wall. On the stage, two men were locked in a brutal struggle. The rules here were bone-chillingly simple. Kill your opponent, and you win. Both fighters were at the 5th stage of body refining. One swung a massive broadsword, each strike whistling through the air with heavy, overbearing force. The other fought barehanded, his fists moving in a blur of calculated strikes. A crowd of gamblers and spectators pressed against the barriers, screaming for blood. This was how the soul-slaying hall made its fortune, pitting warriors against each other and taking a cut of the bets. The fight was reaching its peak. The martial artist using his fists seemed to have the upper hand, his relentless pressure stifling the swordsman's momentum. At the 5th stage of body refining, a man possesses the strength of 36 bulls. Combined with the right techniques, the power is devastating. I watched them closely, my expression hidden behind my mask. So, Master Mieyun, Mo Xiao whispered, leaning toward me. Who do you think will win? The one with the sword, I said. She arched an eyebrow. Really? The boxer seems to be dominating. I didn't answer. A second later, the swordsman swung his blade in a desperate downward arc. The boxer sneered, thinking he had timed the opening perfectly. He brought his fists together to intercept the strike. But suddenly, the swordsman's blade accelerated. He had been holding back a burst of hidden strength. The heavy steel sliced through the boxer's guard and crashed straight into his skull. The sound of bones splitting echoed through the arena. Blood sprayed across the floor as the boxer collapsed, dead before he hit the boards. The crowd erupted, half in furious curses, half in ecstatic cheers. Mo Xiao glanced at me, her curiosity deepening. A recorder stood by the stage and shouted, "Number 76, Lu Meng, wins." The swordsman shouldered his massive blade and walked off. Then, Mo Xiao stepped onto the stage. Her presence alone silenced the crowd. Men stared at her elegant figure and commanding aura, some literally drooling. She clearly held a high status here. Many spoke to her, but no one dared to cross the line into disrespect. Next match, she announced, her voice carrying over the din. Number 97, Master Mieyun. 5th stage body refining. Who dares to challenge him? The crowd went quiet, confused. Mieyun? Who the hell is that? I stepped up beside her. In my plain white robes and mask, I looked thin and young, barely 16 or 17. Are you joking, Miss Mo Xiao? Someone yelled. That kid? The men here will chew his bones to dust. Mo Xiao just smiled. This is a life and death arena. The soul-slaying hall never jokes. I'll do it. I'll do it. A lean, scrawny man in his 30s scrambled onto the stage. He had rotting yellow teeth and a wicked-looking dagger tucked into his belt. He looked me over and let out a greasy laugh. Some brat looking for fun, eh? Careful, kid. You'll lose your life before you find it. I looked him in the eye. Start the fight. The man blinked. Usually, newcomers were shaking in their boots. I was too calm for his liking. Acting tough, are we? He sneered. Number 91, Wang Yuan. Number 97, I replied. Mieyun. Mo Xiao stepped down from the stage, signaling the start. Place your bets. Don't wait, or you'll miss out on the easy money. The spectators rushed to the betting stalls. Almost every single one of them put their money on Wang Yuan. He was a regular here, a bottom feeder, who stayed at the 5th stage for years, refusing to fight anyone who looked strong, but pouncing on anyone who looked weak. He had never lost a match like this, and had already pocketed thousands of silver taels. He was fast, cruel, and never relied on brute force. As we stood opposite each other, a spiritual formation shimmered into existence around the stage. The power of 2 level 5 warriors could easily wreck the building, so the barriers were necessary. Kid, this is a place for killers, Wang Yuan hissed, his hand creeping behind his back. Say goodbye to your soul. I didn't say a word. I lowered my center of gravity, my fists clenched, my body coiling like a spring. Below the stage, Mo Xiao's eyes widened. She was a martial artist herself, and she saw the shift immediately. In an instant, my aura had changed. I wasn't just a boy anymore. I was a predator. I was a tiger entering its hunting grounds. Wang Yuan lunged. He was fast, a blur of movement that brought him right into my personal space. He threw a punch at my face as a distraction, but I was already moving. I shifted my weight, my fingers curving into the shape of claws. I funneled my spiritual energy into my hands, my physical strength exploding outward. Tiger roar fist, tiger's claw. I caught his wrist in a grip of iron. Just as I was about to snap his arm like a dry twig, Wang Yuan's other hand flashed forward. He had been hiding his dagger. The cold steel lunged for my throat. I had no choice but to react. I had no choice but to let go. I retreated several steps, my breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. My soul and memories had only just merged with this dying body. I had spent time familiarizing myself with these limbs, but they were still clumsy and unrefined. If I were even slightly faster, I would have snapped Wang Yuan's wrist before he could even draw that blade. I watched him. He was breathing hard, keeping his distance. I could see the fear in his eyes. He realized now that I wasn't the weak boy I appeared to be. My explosive power and reflexes had caught him off guard. He stopped trying to taunt me. He knew words wouldn't work on a predator. Below the stage, the crowd went silent for a heartbeat. They had seen the exchange. They realized Mie Yun wasn't a victim. He was a threat. Wang Yuan, if you lose this, I'll cut your head off myself, someone screamed from the front row. He had bet 100 silver taels on my opponent. The rest of the gamblers joined in, their roars filling the hall with bloodlust. I didn't wait for them to finish. I moved. My feet swept across the floor, the sound of my movement like a sudden gust of wind. I kept my posture loose, my arms hanging relaxed as I closed the gap. Wang Yuan panicked. He lashed out with his dagger, aiming straight for my eyes. I dropped. I bent my body at an impossible angle, feeling the cold steel whistle just inches above my face. As I lunged forward, my relaxed hands suddenly hardened into iron claws. I drove them straight into his midsection. Crack. The sound of snapping bone echoed through the arena. Wang Yuan's face turned ghostly white. I had crushed his ribs with my bare hands. At the 5th stage of body refining, a warrior's bones are supposed to be as hard as steel. To me, they felt like dry twigs. Before he could even scream, I shifted my stance again. I pulled my fingers together, forming a tight, pointed spear with my hand. I slammed it into the same spot on his abdomen. Tiger break. A sickening squelch followed. The force of the blow tore through his body. The back of his shirt exploded outward in a spray of blood and viscera. Wang Yuan crumpled to the floor like a puppet with its strings cut. He didn't even have time to groan before the light left his eyes. It was over in seconds. Clean. Merciless. The arena went deathly quiet. Mo Xiao stared at me from the sidelines, her jaw dropped in shock. She had to be wondering if I was really the same Yi Wushuang everyone called a useless waste. The boy who couldn't even gather spiritual energy for 3 years had just slaughtered a veteran killer without breaking a sweat. Number 97, Mie Yun, wins, the announcer shouted as the spiritual barrier flickered out. I stood over the corpse, my expression cold. I looked out at the crowd of stunned faces. Who's next? I asked. My voice was calm, almost bored. Mo Xiao smiled from below. She looked like she was enjoying the show. The conflict between the Yun and Yi families was the talk of Liyue City, but it seemed the Yun family had picked a fight with the wrong person. I'll take you. A voice boomed like thunder. A massive man named Lu Meng stepped onto the stage. He was a brute who had just won his previous match. Unlike Wang Yuan, who relied on tricks, Lu Meng was famous for his raw, overwhelming strength. He carried a broadsword that gleamed with a lethal chill. Kid, do you dare to fight me? He growled, his eyes locked on mine. Why wouldn't I? I replied. The gamblers went into a frenzy, most of them dumping their money on Lu Meng. Only a small handful of people, perhaps hoping for a miracle, bet on me. The barrier rose again. Lu Meng didn't waste time with words. He dragged his heavy blade across the floor, sparks flying, before letting out a deafening roar. He leaped into the air, using the momentum of his massive body to bring the sword down in a vertical cleave meant to split me in two. I didn't dodge. I didn't even flinch. I stepped forward, spreading my arms wide, charging directly into the path of the blade. The kid is suicidal, someone yelled. Lu Meng has natural Herculean strength. No level 5 warrior can block that head-on. Even Mo Xiao leaned forward, her eyes wide. She couldn't believe I was just throwing my life away. The blade descended, humming with killing intent. Just as the edge was about to bite into my skull, I clapped my hands together. I caught the flat of the blade between my palms. Boom. The floorboards beneath my feet shattered into splinters. Dust swirled around us, but the sword stopped dead. Lu Mang's eyes nearly popped out of his head. A normal level 5 warrior has the strength of 36 bulls. But I wasn't normal. My body had been tempered by the essence of my past life's soul. My strength was closer to 49 bulls, surpassing even a level 6 warrior. Lu Mang tried to pull the sword back, but it wouldn't budge. He tried to push it down, but I was a mountain. I gripped the back of the blade and began to twist. Slowly, agonizingly, I forced the edge of his own sword toward his throat. Panic set in. Sweat poured down his face as he realized he was trapped. If he let go of the handle, I would kill him instantly. If he held on, he was just guiding the blade to his own jugular. The steel moved inch by inch, closer and closer to his neck. Sweat poured down Lu Mang's face in thick droplets. He let out a primal roar, his clothes tearing as the muscles in his arms bulged and veins popped like thick cords. He was putting every ounce of his strength into a desperate struggle to push back. I didn't give him the chance. I tightened my grip on the blade, my knuckles turning white. With a sudden, explosive burst of power, I twisted the edge of the broadsword. Shuck! The steel sliced clean through Lu Mang's neck. His head spun through the air, eyes still wide with shock. A fountain of blood sprayed across the stage, staining my white robes crimson. I stood there, a thin and seemingly frail boy, looking like a demon drenched in red. The silence in the arena was absolute. It felt like death itself had settled over the crowd. Finally, the referee's voice cracked through the stillness. Number 97. Mie Yun wins. The crowd erupted. The noise was deafening. This unknown kid named Mie Yun had just appeared out of nowhere and slaughtered Wang Yuan and Lu Mang back to back. It was unthinkable. I tossed the bloodied broadsword aside and stared out at the sea of faces. My voice was cold and steady. Who's next? The third match began almost immediately. Then the fourth. Then the fifth. I didn't move from that stage. I held my ground, using nothing but my tiger roar fist to shatter anyone who stepped up. By the sixth match, the crowd around my platform had tripled. Up in the VIP balcony, Emo Xiao was leaning against the railing, her excitement growing. I was becoming the main attraction. In a place like the Soul-Slaying Hall, a sensation like me meant one thing: money. Gamblers were throwing down massive bets, desperate to see if the streak would continue. "Shower, what's going on here?" A middle-aged man walked up behind her. He had a commanding presence, his every movement radiating authority. This was Emo Xian, the master of the Soul-Slaying Hall. He looked down at the crowd, confused why everyone had abandoned the other 10 stages to swarm around mine. "We have a very special guest," Emo Xiao said with a smirk. She quickly whispered the details of who I was, or who she suspected I was. Emo Xian's expression shifted from curiosity to genuine shock. "Is Yi Wushuang?" Emo Xiao nodded. Behind the mask, I was Mie Yun, the butcher of the arena. No one would ever link this unstoppable warrior to the dying, pathetic cripple from the Yi family. "Perfect," Emo Xian muttered. As the hall master, his status was equal to the heads of the 4 great families. He didn't care about my reputation. He saw a gold mine. If he's going to cause a stir, let's make it a big one. Bring out the other level 5 fighters who are on 10-match winning streaks. The matches continued. I was becoming a nightmare for my opponents. By the time the 10th match ended, I stood victorious again. The arena was a riot of shouting and cheering. "This kid is insane," one man yelled. "I told you he was special the moment I saw him," his friend lied. "Where did Liyue City get a monster like this?" 10 matches, 10 kills, all against level 5 warriors. My 10th opponent had been a notorious fighter with a 15-match winning streak, and I'd put him down just like the others. I took a deep breath, feeling the exhaustion starting to creep in. I had won 5,000 taels of silver tonight. That was more than enough to take care of my family for a long time. I turned to leave the stage, ready to collect my earnings. The crowd groaned, disappointed that the show was ending. But before I could take a step toward the stairs, a voice rang out from the edge of the ring. "Mie Yun, wait. I am Yun Chong of the Yun family. I'd like a match. What do you say? A young man stepped onto the stage, a confident, arrogant smile playing on his lips. The crowd gasped. Yun Chong wasn't just some desperate fighter. He was a genius from a major noble house. In Liyue City, the rich kids often came here to test their skills in real combat. Yun Chong was 17, a level 6 warrior, and a core member of the Yun family. He was a celebrity here, known for a 30-match winning streak back when he was level 5. I froze. That name hit me like a physical blow. Yun Chong. Memories flashed through my mind. The night I was framed. The night I was lured into Yun Xian's room. It was this man, Yun Chong, who had led the mob to catch me in bed. I could still hear his sneering voice from that night. A piece of trash like you thinks he can marry into our family? You're a toad lusting after swan meat. Look in a mirror, you pathetic dog. I slowly turned around. Yun Chong stood there in elegant green robes, idly fanning himself with a paper fan. He looked down his nose at me, basking in the admiration of the crowd. You want to fight me? I asked, my voice flat. That's right, he said, snapping his fan shut. I'm level 6, but from what I've seen, you might actually be able to keep up. The rules say if you win a fight against a higher level, the prize money doubles. Even if you die, your family gets the silver you've already won. He paused, a mocking glint in his eyes. Tell you what, if you agree, I'll personally throw in an extra 10,000 taels. Deal, Mo Xiao called out from the sidelines. Master Mie Yun, you don't have to accept. This wasn't arranged by the hall. He's challenging you on his own. I looked at Yun Chong. He was a murderer and a liar who had helped destroy my life. And now, he was walking right into my hands. I accept, I said. The crowd went wild. Mo Xian and Mo Xiao stared at me in disbelief. A level 5 fighting a level 6 was usually a suicide mission. The gap in power was massive. Good. Oh, Yun Chong laughed, genuinely excited. He signaled his servants to bring out 10,000 taels and silver notes immediately. He thought he was buying a show. He didn't realize he was paying for his own funeral. The crowd below the stage went into a frenzy. Gamblers rushed to place their bets, the air thick with the smell of sweat and greed. Everyone was betting on Yun Chong. It wasn't even a question. He was at level 6 of the body refining realm, possessing the raw strength of 45 bulls. Combined with his high-tier martial techniques, he was a monster. I was only at level 5. To the crowd, I was just a talented underdog who had reached his limit. They knew Yun Chong wasn't some random fighter. He was the genius of the Yun family, a ruthless killer who had already won 9 consecutive matches on this stage. The spirit array flickered to life, glowing around the stage. I looked at Yun Chang's lazy, arrogant stance and tightened my fists. A cold, sharp aura began to radiate from me. Yun Chong just smiled. He let his breath explode, his level 6 pressure rolling across the platform like a wave. The fight started before the referee could even shout the command. We moved at the exact same time. It was a blur of motion. We both led with fist techniques. I lunged forward with my tiger roar fist, my hand curved into a fierce claw aimed straight for his throat. Yun Chong didn't flinch. He countered with a direct punch, his fist cutting through the air like a battering ram. Bang! Our collision sent a dull thud echoing through the hall. We both skidded back, the force of the impact vibrating through the floorboards. Off to the side, I heard Mo Xiao whisper in surprise. She recognized Yun Chang's technique, the Angry Dragon Punch. It was a technique fast as lightning and heavy as a mountain. She couldn't believe I had met it head-on without breaking. Her brother, Mo Xian, saw something deeper. He noted that my tiger style looked like it had been practiced for 10 years, not just a few days. He knew I had been a trash for 3 years, yet here I was, fighting like a grandmaster. We traded 6 more blows in seconds. To the audience, it looked like I was barely escaping death with every move. But I was in total control. Yun Chong started to realize it, too. His smirk faded. He realized that despite being a level lower, my raw physical strength was matching his. Interesting, Yun Chong said, his voice dropping an octave. It looks like I need to take you seriously. Is that so? I replied coldly. Because once you take me seriously, you're going to die. Yun Chong let out a low snarl. Go to hell. He unleashed his killing dragon punch. It was 3 times more powerful than his previous strikes. The wind from his fist whistled, pushing against my face before the blow even landed. I took a deep breath and crouched low, my body coiling like a predator in the grass. As he lunged, I sprang. Tiger Roar Fist, 4th style, Spirit Fox Lock. It wasn't a high-damage move, but its grappling power was unmatched. My hands clamped onto his attacking arm like iron shackles, draining the momentum from his punch. When our bodies finally slammed together, Yun Chang's face turned pale. He felt it, the sudden, terrifying surge in my strength. It was 10 times stronger than before. I didn't give him a second to breathe. I shifted my grip and brought my fist down like a hammer. Crack! The blow caught him square on the head. His vision blurred, and his legs turned to jelly. Before he could recover, I drove a kick into his gut. He hit the floor hard. I didn't wait. I leaped onto him, pinning him to the ground with my weight. I wound up and smashed my fist into his face. Thud! Blood sprayed. His cheeks swelled instantly, teeth flying out of his mouth. He tried to speak, but he was choking on his own blood. Stop! Stop! He wheezed, waving a trembling hand. I concede. There is no conceding on the life and death stage, I growled. I rained down punch after punch. Thud! 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 His face turned into a purple, unrecognizable mess. He couldn't even form words anymore. Stop it right now, a voice screamed from below. It was one of Yun Chang's guards. That is a young master of the Yun family. If you kill him, you won't live long enough to leave this building. I paused and looked at the guard. I gave him a mocking smile, then turned back and landed another heavy blow right on Yun Chang's jaw. That was my answer. You're dead, the guard roared, his face twisted in rage. I ignored him. I leaned down, putting my mouth close to Yun Chang's ear. He was the man who had looked down on me just the night before. Look at you, I whispered so only he could hear. A piece of trash like you thought he could challenge me? You should have looked in a mirror. You aren't worthy. Yun Chang's eyes widened. He started to gurgle, his body shaking with a sudden realization. You're. He never finished the sentence. I grabbed a broadsword laying on the stage and swung it in one clean arc. Squelch. Yun Chang's head rolled across the wooden floor, stopping at the edge of the stage. I stood there, blood dripping from the blade, looking like a demon reborn. Yun Chang, I muttered to the corpse. You're only the second one on my list. The entire hall fell into a deathly silence. No one dared to breathe. Even Mo Xian was stunned. He realized I had been holding back the entire time. To dominate a level 6 fighter like that while only being at level 5 was unheard of. The spirit array flickered out. I stepped off the stage, and the crowd parted like the sea, eyes filled with terror. Master Mieyun, please follow me, Mo Xiao said, her voice trembling slightly with a forced, flirtatious smile. Let's get you your silver. I followed her into a private room. She handed me several stacks of silver notes. 16,000 taels, exactly as promised. Please, check them. I counted the money and nodded. I was ready to leave, but Mo Xian stepped forward. Master, if you ever need more silver, the life and death stage is always open for you. Next time, I'll personally guarantee you 1,000 taels per match. What do you say? We'll see, I said flatly. I didn't plan on being a gladiator forever. With the memories of my past life, there were 1,000 ways to make money. This was just the quickest way to handle an emergency. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the building. The walls groaned, and the door to the private room shattered inward. What happened? Mo Xian barked, his face turning dark. A guard ran in, his face white with fear. Hall Master, it's bad. Xiao Yuan, he broke out of the cage. He's escaped. Mo Xian, a powerful pulse condensation realm expert, actually looked terrified. What? He was sealed by the 5 elements array. How could he get out? I stepped out of the room and looked toward the back of the hall. The training area was in total chaos. Standing in the middle of the wreckage was a young man, nearly 7 feet tall. His hair was a matted mess, and his bare torso was covered in a spiderweb of jagged, horrific scars. The giant man let out a guttural roar, his hands hoisting a guard high into the air. I'll kill you all. I'll kill every last one of you. His face was a mask of pure feral rage, his mouth stained with fresh blood and bits of raw flesh. He looked less like a man and more like a primitive savage. It was a terrifying sight. Mo Xian didn't hesitate. He immediately began shouting orders, rallying the guards to intercept the monster. Most of the spectators had already fled in a panic, leaving the hall a ghost town of wreckage. I stayed put, my eyes narrowing as I watched the giant. His veins bulged against his skin like thick cords, and a faint, ominous black glow pulsed around his body. I froze. I recognized that aura. The heaven-devouring demonic origin bloodline. I whispered to myself. Mo Xiao was standing right next to me, her face pale. I turned to her, my voice calm despite the chaos. Who is he? Just a maniac, she stammered. He wandered into Liyue City territory, and we spent a fortune capturing him. We were going to ship him to the imperial capital to turn a profit. When he's sane, he's only at the 8th level of the body refining realm. But once he goes mad, he's as strong as a pulse condensation expert, and he's 10 times more vicious. Mo Xian led a dozen guards, all at the 8th or 9th level of body refining, and surrounded the youth named Xiao Yuan. Stay back, Mo Xian barked. He knew better than anyone how dangerous this boy was when the madness took him. Mo Xian lunged forward, his hands glowing with concentrated spiritual energy. He slammed both palms into Xiao Yuan's chest. There was a sickening thud. The force was enough to cave in the boy's chest, but instead of stopping him, it only fueled his rage. With a terrifying shriek, Xiao Yuan gripped the guard he was holding. A wet tear echoed through the hall as he ripped the man completely in half. Kill. Kill you all. He swung a massive fist toward Mo Xian. Mo Xian had no time to dodge. He raised his arms to block. Boom. The collision sounded like a heavy hammer hitting an anvil. Mo Xian turned pale, a trickle of blood escaping his lips as he was blown back several steps. This is bad, Mo Xiao whispered, her voice trembling. Uncle Xian is at the 1st level of the pulse condensation realm. He's our strongest fighter, and even he can't stop him. The hall is going to be destroyed. I looked at the destruction. If Xiao Yuan broke out of this building and started a massacre in the city, the great families of Liyue would blame the Hall of Souls. They'd be wiped out. Doesn't this place have formations? I asked. He was supposed to be trapped by the 5 elements array, she replied frantically. I don't know how he broke free. I thought for a second. Take me to the formation core. Formations were complex webs of spiritual runes drawn by masters to harness the power of heaven and earth. There were killing arrays, illusion arrays, and defensive arrays. In Liyue City, most families used mortal arrays for body-refining warriors. Only spirit arrays could threaten those in the pulse condensation realm or higher. Mo Xiao looked at me, stunned. You understand formations? I know a little, I said. She didn't have time to argue. She led me to a hidden room behind a secret panel. It was a massive chamber built from solid granite. On the far wall, hundreds of glowing spiritual runes were etched into the stone, branching out like a spiderweb to every corner of the building. To an untrained eye like Mo Xiao's, it was a dizzying mess of light. I stepped forward. My eyes flashed with a faint golden light as I scanned the work. This was the 5 elements array, a grade 1 spirit array, supported by 16 smaller mortal arrays. Mo Xiao looked proud of it, claiming it could stop 100 warriors. I almost laughed. To me, it was garbage. The runes were sloppy, the connections were crude, and the logic was full of holes. It was a miracle the thing worked at all. Our formations aren't as strong as the 4 great families, but they aren't weak, Mo Xiao said, sensing my disapproval. I didn't answer. I walked up to the wall and closed my eyes. When I opened them, my fingers were moving. I flicked my wrists, and a dozen new, perfect spiritual runes materialized in the air, dancing like fireflies. I sent them flying into the core of the array. Suddenly, the dim, flickering runes on the walls erupted with brilliant light. The air in the hall grew heavy and sharp. The broken connections snapped back into place, humming with newfound power. Mo Xiao's jaw dropped. She remembered when a master from the capital took half a month to set this up. I had fixed it in seconds. You call this knowing a little? She breathed. I ignored the question and watched the energy flow through the building. The array was finally stable. I turned back to her, my expression grim. The original array was a mess. It never stood a chance of holding a berserk pulse condensation warrior. but it will now. I walked out of the secret chamber and into a scene of pure carnage. The guards of the Soul Slayer Hall were scattered across the floor, their bodies torn open and organs spilled out. The air smelled of iron and death. It was a massacre. Mo Xian and her remaining men were still struggling to contain the berserk Xiao Yuan, who looked more like a demon than a man. "Back off," I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. I didn't wait for them to respond. I clenched my hand, and 8 spiritual runes instantly flickered into existence within my palm. I wove them together until they formed the ancient character for wind. "Wind," I barked. I slammed my palm down. Suddenly, the entire Soul Slayer Hall seemed to wake up. The hidden runes I had just repaired glowed with a blinding light, drawing in the surrounding spiritual energy. 5 pillars of light erupted around Xiao Yuan, slamming into him and transforming into heavy seals that pinned his limbs. Xiao Yuan let out a guttural roar. He threw his massive fists against the glowing barriers, his strength enough to crack stone, but the seals didn't even flicker. I brought my hands together in a prayer position, forcing the wind rune into the heart of the formation. There was a heavy thud. Xiao Yuan's massive frame collapsed, as if an invisible mountain had just dropped onto his back. He hit the floor face first, unable to move so much as a finger. Mo Xian and Mo Xiao stared at me in stunned silence. The boy in white they thought was a fallen noble was standing over a monster they couldn't touch. Mo Xian stepped forward, her eyes wide with disbelief. You understand array formations too, young Master Yi?" she stammered. "I know a little," I replied calmly. Beside her, Mo Xiao looked like she wanted to choke. "A little?" I had repaired a complex grade 1 spirit array in seconds and was now controlling it like it was an extension of my own body. In Liyue City, there were barely 10 mortal arrayists and not a single spirit arrayist. Even the great families had to beg masters from the capital to set up their defenses, paying fortunes for work that wasn't half as clean as mine. Mo Xian bowed deeply, her respect finally genuine. She realized the rumors about me being a useless waste for the last 3 years were complete lies. "Thank you for your help," she said. "If that man had escaped, the casualties in the city would have been unthinkable." She paused, then looked at me with a desperate glint in her eyes. "I have an unreasonable request. Since you can fix our arrays, could you build us a new, permanent guardian formation? I won't ask for free. I'll pay 10,000 taels." I didn't say anything. I was thinking about my empty pockets. I needed to fix the Yi family estate, hire servants, buy medicine for my uncle, and find resources for my sister's cultivation. Everything required money. Mo Xian saw my silence and grew nervous. 20,000 gold taels, she blurted out. I blinked, thinking gold? For a simple grade 1 array? That was an astronomical sum. 30,000 gold taels, she shouted, her voice trembling. That is my absolute limit. I forced myself not to laugh at my luck. "Deal," I said with a thin smile. "Wonderful." Mo Xian looked relieved. She turned to her men. "Take Xiao Yuan back to the cells." "Wait," I interrupted. "I want him." Mo Xian froze. "Young Master Yi. Even when he isn't berserk, he's at the 8th level of the body refining realm. He's incredibly dangerous. The only reason we kept him was to sell him to the capital for a 15,000 gold bounty." I looked at the pinned man and then back at her. "Name your price." Mo Xian studied me for a long time. She was a smart woman. She saw my performance in the arena and my mastery of arrays. She knew I was an investment. "I'll give him to you for free," she said finally. Mo Xiao gasped, shocked by her sister's generosity, but I understood. This was a bribe for my friendship. "I don't like taking favors for nothing," I said. "In exchange for the man, I won't just give you 1 array. I'll build you a system of 3 spirit arrays supported by 24 mortal arrays. If anyone below the 5th level of the pulse condensation realm tries to cause trouble here, you can use the array to execute them on the spot." Their jaws hit the floor. That kind of defense was unheard of in this city. I walked back to the array core and got to work. I didn't destroy the existing 5 elements array. Instead, I began to manifest soul runes, one after another. My fingers blurred as I flicked them into the air. 100, 200, 300. By the time I reached 421 runes, cold sweat was dripping down my face. My current body was only at the 5th level of body refining. Even with my enhanced soul, maintaining this many runes was pushing me to the limit. Most grade 1 masters could barely manage 100. Mo Xian watched from the corner, her face pale. She knew enough about arrays to know that 400 runes meant I could theoretically kill pulse condensation experts with a wave of my hand. After an hour, I stepped back, my breath coming in ragged gasps. It's done, I rasped. I've reinforced the core and stripped away the useless parts. This link can now suppress a first-level pulse condensation warrior with ease. To prove it, I made a sudden gesture with my hand. 2 spectral hands erupted from the floor and grabbed Mo Xian's ankles. At the same time, 2 massive, phantom boulders materialized over her shoulders, slamming down with crushing weight. She let out a gasp, her knees buckling as she was pinned to the floor, unable to move a single muscle despite her own cultivation. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of terror and awe. I had turned her own headquarters into a fortress, and I had done it in a single afternoon. Is this the true power of the array? Mo Xian asked, her voice trembling. I looked at her calmly. I'll show you how to operate the core later. Soon, you'll be able to control every inch of the soul testing hall through this central hub. But I'm only at the 5th level of body refining. My mental energy isn't enough to finish the entire layout in one go. I need 2 more days. I wiped the sweat from my brow. I'm going to merge 3 grade 1 spiritual arrays into one. Once it's finished, even a 4th level pulse condensation expert won't survive a fight inside this hall. Mo Xian didn't hesitate. She nodded and immediately had her people bring me 10,000 taels in gold tickets. It wasn't the full payment, but since the array wasn't finished, that was fair. As we left the secret chamber, I walked over to Xiao Yuan. He was still bound tightly by heavy chains. He wasn't screaming anymore, but his eyes were bloodshot and wild. Most people would have been terrified to stand near him. I leaned in close to his ear. I know the secret of the bloodline inside you. I whispered. I can help you control it. I can make you a legend. If you want to follow me, we leave now. If you don't, I'll kill you right here. Xiao Yuan froze. His entire body went stiff as he stared at me. I don't have time to wait for an answer, I added. He looked me dead in the eye, his voice cold and sharp. Fine. I didn't waste a second. I reached out, grabbed the thick iron chains, and snapped them with my bare hands. The sound of shattering metal echoed through the room. I turned and walked away without looking back. Xiao Yuan was stunned. He stared at my back, confused that I would just let him walk free. Didn't I fear he would go mad and kill me? Mo Xian and Mo Xiao watched us, their faces pale with shock. As we reached the main lobby, Mo Xiao hurried to catch up with me. She had a playful, charming smile on her face. Master Yi, I assume you need money because of the Yi family's current situation? Our hall also deals in the sale of servants, maids, and craftsmen. Are you interested? Are they reliable? I asked. She leaned in a bit closer, her scent drifting toward me. To others? Maybe not. But for you, Master Yi, they will be perfectly reliable. Good, I said. I need 20 maids and servants. I also need craftsmen to take back to the Yi Manor. Their backgrounds must be clean. They don't need to be warriors. Mo Xiao looked surprised. You don't need guards? To protect the house. I looked her in the eyes and gave a thin, cold smile. Guards? No. Right now, anyone brave enough to break into the Yi Manor is someone who is looking to die. I let that sink in for a moment. Just make sure the servants have clean histories. That is the most important part. She flinched slightly under my gaze, then nodded quickly. A short while later, I left the soul testing hall. A dozen people followed behind me, along with a horse-drawn carriage. Xiao Yuan walked silently by my side as we headed toward the Yi Manor. I'm Yi Wushuang, I told him as we walked. The young master of the Yi family here in Liyue City. Xiao Yuan gave a cold grunt. I've heard the title. It doesn't seem to mean much these days. My name is Xiao Yuan. I'm from the imperial capital. The bloodline in your body is strange, I said, ignoring his jab. It's the heaven-shaking demon origin bloodline. If you guide it properly, it will help you surpass the heavenly pillar realm. But if you can't soothe it, you'll keep going mad until your body literally explodes from the pressure. I'm not just going to suppress it. I'm going to teach you how to master it. Xiao Yuan stopped walking. Why should I trust you? I laughed. You don't have a choice. If I hadn't taken you out of there, the soul testing hall would have sold you off. Someone would have ripped that bloodline out of your body, and you'd be dead. Stay with me and live. That's the deal. Xiao Yuan went silent for a long time. He knew I was telling the truth. As we neared the gates of the Yi Manor, he spoke up again. There's one thing you should know. The people hunting me are from a powerful family in the imperial capital. By taking me, you are inviting massive trouble. Trouble? I patted his shoulder and grinned. Trust me, I have plenty of that already. I looked at the dilapidated gates of the Yi Manor and felt a flicker of warmth. This was where I grew up in this life. This was where my journey back to the top of the heavens would begin. In my hand, I held a small package of candied haws wrapped in oil paper. They were Yi Feifei's favorite. Even when the family was starving, she would stand by the stalls and just watch the vendors, never crying or asking for them because she knew we were poor. I took a deep breath and called out as I entered the courtyard. Mom, Uncle, Feifei, I'm home. Feifei, look what I brought you. My mother, Lu Yueme, came running out. She looked relieved to see me, but her eyes immediately darted around the group of servants behind me. Her face went pale. Wu Shuang, where is Feifei? She gasped, rushing toward me. My heart skipped a beat. She's not at home. She went to wait for you at the entrance of the city, my mother cried. She said she wanted to be the first to see you return. Before I could react, 2 young messengers from the soul testing hall came sprinting through the gates, panting for breath. Master Yi, one of them shouted. Miss Imo Xiao sent us. We just got word. Your sister, Yi Feifei, has been snatched by Qin Song of the Qin family. The Qin family, one of the 4 major families of Liyue City. I knew Qin Song. He was a worthless, lecherous brat. Where is she? I asked, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Someone saw him drag her into the Qinyan Pavilion, the messenger stammered. The Qinyan Pavilion was the most famous brothel and gambling den in the city. My blood turned to ice. My mother nearly collapsed. I caught her, holding her steady. That Qin Song, he's a monster, she sobbed. But Feifei is only 10 years old. What could he possibly want with her? It's okay, Mom, I said, my voice eerily calm. I'm going to bring her back. Right now. I turned to Xiao Yuan. With me. Now. We sprinted out of the manor, following the messengers toward the red light district. Inside a lavish private room on the 2nd floor of the Qinyan Pavilion, the air was thick with the smell of cheap perfume and wine. Yi Feifei was trembling, her eyes red from crying as she stared at the people surrounding her. Sitting at the table was a young man around 18. He was handsome in a sickly way, with pale skin and dark circles under his eyes. Qin Song, Feifei stammered, her voice shaking. Please let me go. My brother is coming for me. Your brother? Qin Song poured himself a glass of wine and chuckled. Kid, are you stupid? Your brother is probably dead in the dirt by now. He leaned back, looking at her with a cruel smirk. The Yi family is finished. The Yun family might care about their reputation enough to let a few of you live, but I don't give a damn about my reputation. A loser's sister is just a loser herself. He put down his glass and scanned her thin, trembling frame. You're a bit skinny, but you'll do. She's actually a pretty good seed, Qin Song mused, his eyes scanning my sister with a sickening hunger. Give her 2 or 3 years, and she'll be a real beauty. Too bad I don't have that kind of patience. He leaned forward, tapping the table. Come here. Pour me some wine. Feifei stood there, trembling so hard she couldn't move. One of Qin Song's guards, a man named Li He, lost his temper. He lunged forward, grabbed Feifei by her hair, and yanked her toward the table. You little brat, Li He spat. You think you have a choice? If you don't listen, I'll go to the Yi Manor right now and slaughter your mother and that crippled uncle of yours. Feifei froze. Her breath hitched in her throat, her tiny frame stiff with terror. She didn't dare breathe as she stood by the table. Qin Song laughed, looking up at Li He. You know, you reminded me of something. Lu Yueme was quite the beauty in Liyue City back in the day. I bet she still has some spark left. Li He grinned. Young master, should I go bring her here for you? No rush, Qin Song smirked, his eyes dark. Wait until the sun goes down. It'll be more fun then. He looked back at Feifei. Poor. Feifei was paralyzed by fear for our mother. Her hands shook violently as she lifted the heavy wine jar. A splash of liquid spilled out, staining the front of Qin Song's expensive silk robes. Qin Song's face twisted in an instant. Useless brat. You can't even pour wine. What good are you? He didn't hesitate. He swung his arm in a brutal arc, his palm cracking against Fei-Fei's face. The sound of the slap echoed through the room. Qin Song was a degenerate, but he was still a cultivator at the fourth stage of the body refining realm. Even a casual strike carried enough force to break bones. Fei-Fei was thrown backward. Her head slammed into a wooden pillar with a sickening thud. Blood began to seep from her hairline, and her eyes rolled back as she slumped to the floor, nearly unconscious. A loser's sister is just as pathetic as he is, Qin Song spat. If you weren't somewhat pretty, I'd have killed you with that blow. Get up. Pour it again. Fei-Fei tried to move, but her head was spinning. She struggled to find her footing, only to collapse back onto the floor. Li stepped toward her, his face full of malice. Get up, you worthless girl. He reached down, his hand once again clawing for her hair. Boom. The heavy wooden doors didn't just open, they disintegrated. Splinters flew across the room as the frame shattered into pieces. Everyone inside jumped. Qin Song slammed his wine glass down, screaming, "Who the hell is it now? Does everyone want to die today?" He looked toward the doorway and froze. His jaw dropped. Yi Wushuang. He couldn't believe it. I was supposed to be a dying invalid. Yet there I stood, alive and breathing. I didn't look at him. My eyes swept the room until they landed on Fei-Fei. I saw the blood matted in her hair. I saw the dark, swollen bruise on her cheek. In that moment, a white-hot fury ignited in my soul, hotter than any flame I had encountered as a heavenly emperor. Fei-Fei, my mother, my uncle, they were all I had left in this life. They were my blood. And someone had dared to touch them. I started walking toward her. I didn't say a word. Yi Wushuang, you're actually alive, Qin Song shouted, trying to mask his sudden fear with bravado. How is a piece of trash like you still walking? I ignored him. I didn't even blink. Li stepped into my path, a sneer on his face. Hey brat, my master is talking to you. Are you deaf, you deadweight? I kept walking. Fine, die then, Li roared. He was at the second stage of body refining, and in his mind, I was still a weakling. He threw a heavy punch straight at my temple. I moved faster than he could see. My hand shot out, catching his fist midair. I gripped it, my eyes locking onto his. My voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. Did you do this? Li blinked, confused. What? I tightened my grip. The sound of bones grinding together filled the room. *CR crack. Snap. *. Li's face went pale. He let out a blood-curdling scream, dropping to his knees. Let go. Let go of me, you freak. I didn't let go. I squeezed until his fist turned into a mangled mess of flesh and shattered bone. Blood sprayed across the floor. With a final twist, I felt his spirit break. He collapsed, sobbing in agony. Since she was born, I've never even touched a hair on her head, I said, my voice cold as the grave. And you thought you could lay a hand on her? I stepped over him without a second glance. I reached Fei-Fei and knelt down, pulling her gently into my arms. Fei-Fei, does it hurt? The moment she felt my touch, the dam broke. She hadn't cried when she was kidnapped. She hadn't cried when she was slapped. But now, she clung to my neck and wailed. Brother, I thought I'd never see you again. My heart twisted with guilt. She was only 10 years old. She knew what kind of man Qin Song was. She had been terrified out of her mind, and I hadn't been there to protect her. It's okay, I whispered, stroking her hair. I'm here now. I'm taking you home. You really have power now. Qin Song stammered, standing up behind the table. I looked at him. Just one look. He flinched as if a tiger was staring him down, ready to tear his throat out. Xiao Yuan, take her, I said. Xiao Yuan stepped into the room and took Fei-Fei from my arms. He looked at the scene, his jaw tight. He knew that if we had been a minute later, something unforgivable would have happened. What are you doing? Qin Song backed away, his voice trembling. Don't be stupid. I'm a member of the Qin family. My cousin Qin Hao was chosen by the imperial clan. If you touch me. I took a step forward. My foot landed directly on Li's head as he lay moaning on the floor. There was a sickening crunch as his skull gave way. I didn't even look down. I just kept walking toward Qin Song. Stop him. Kill him. Qin Song screamed. His 3 remaining guards rushed me. They were at the second and third stages of body refining. To me, they were nothing but paper. I met the first one with a single punch. My tiger roar fist exploded with power, my fist punching straight through his abdomen. He coughed up a spray of blood and slumped over, dead before he hit the ground. The other 2 froze, their faces turning ashen. They tried to back away, but I was faster. I blurred across the room, my hands moving like claws. I grabbed both of them by their throats and lifted them off the ground. They thrashed, unable to even scream as I crushed the life out of them. Qin Song was completely broken. He knew he was at the 4th stage, but he also knew he couldn't have killed those 4 guards so easily. He didn't fight. He turned and dove through the 2nd-story window, crashing onto the street below. He scrambled to his feet, desperate to run. But a voice stopped him cold. "Where do you think you're going?" Qin Song froze as cold sweat poured down his back. He turned slowly to see me standing right behind him, my expression completely void of emotion. He fell onto his backside, scrambling backward on the dirt. "Wuxuang, please, don't do this. If you kill me, the Qin family will never let you go. They'll hunt you down." I looked down at him, my shadow stretching over his trembling form. "And what if I don't care?" I stepped forward and slammed my palm across Qin Song's face. The sound of the slap echoed through the street. "I've already offended the Yun family," I said, my voice cold and steady. "I don't think that's quite enough. Adding the Qin family to the list won't change much." I swung my hand again, the second slap landing even harder than the first. Qin Song's cheeks were swelling rapidly, and his eyes were glazed with dizziness. "Yun, he dared to touch my sister, so he died," I whispered, leaning in close. "Were you planning on following his lead?" Slap, another one. Qin Song's head whipped to the side. He looked like he didn't even know where he was anymore. By now, a crowd had gathered, their faces filled with shock as they watched the scene unfold. I could hear their whispers buzzing around us. "Who is that? Is that Yi Wuxuang? No way. And the guy he's beating. Isn't that Qin Song from the Qin family? Good. That bastard deserves it. He's been using his family name to bully people for years. But how did Yi Wuxuang get so strong? I heard his cultivation was a failure. Didn't Yin Qinyue expose him as a fraud this morning at the St. Pill Pavilion?" I didn't care what they said. I kept going, one slap after another, rhythmically breaking him down. Qin Song was a bloody mess on the ground, his teeth shattered and scattered across the dirt. He stopped moving, looking more like a corpse than a man. "Stop!" a voice thundered through the crowd. The onlookers parted, making way for a young man with long hair and an air of arrogance. He wore a green robe tied with a jade-encrusted belt. He looked refined, like a true young master. When he saw me, he froze in surprise. I looked up, casually wiping a smear of blood off my face. This was Qin Ming. He was a well-known genius in Liyue City, 17 years old and already at the 6th stage of body refining. People said he was even stronger than Yun Song. "Yi Wuxuang, are you looking for death?" Qin Ming roared, staring at the mangled heap that was his kinsman. "How dare you touch a member of my Qin family?" I stood up slowly, putting my foot directly on Qin Song's head. I looked Qin Ming in the eye and let out a short, dry laugh. "You should know something. My sister is off limits. Even if a god tried to touch a single hair on her head, I'd cut him down." Qin Ming's face twisted with rage. To him, it didn't matter how I'd gotten this power. All that mattered was that I was trampling on the Qin family's pride in broad daylight. "Release him. Right now," Qin Ming commanded. "Let him go and come back to the Qin family to accept your punishment. If you refuse," his voice turned deadly, "then you die." The crowd backed away, terrified of the coming explosion. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Xiao Yuan leading my sister, Fei Fei, down from the restaurant. She was leaning against his shoulder, her small face pale with worry. "Will my brother be okay?" she whispered. "It's my fault. I shouldn't have run out. I was just so worried about him." Xiao Yuan patted her head gently. "Don't worry. Your brother is stronger than you think." Fei Fei nodded, her eyes bright with tears. "I know. People laughed at him for 3 years, and the Yun family tried to ruin him, but he's still here. My brother is the best." Back in the center of the street, I stared at Qin Ming and started to laugh. It was a dark, hollow sound. "You want me dead? You think you're qualified?" Qin Ming didn't waste another word. A short sword slid from his sleeve into his grip. I'll give you your answer, I shouted. I slammed my foot down with everything I had. Crunch! Qin Song's head burst like a ripe melon. Blood sprayed across my white robes, staining them a deep, violent crimson. In that moment, standing over the body, I didn't look like a failed cultivator. I looked like a demon. You're dead, Qin Ming screamed, lunging at me. I met his charge with a sneer. I shifted my weight, my hand forming a claw. Spirit Fox Lock. My fingers clamped onto Qin Ming's incoming arm like iron bands. He tried to recoil, shocked by my speed, but I was already moving. I grabbed both of his arms, my fingers digging deep into his flesh. I heard the sickening sound of skin tearing and bone snapping as my fingertips pierced his wrists. You think you're special? I growled. I twisted, snapping one of his wrists completely. As his short sword slipped from his limp fingers, I caught it midair. Qin Ming let out a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the entire street. He was at the peak of the 6th stage, nearly the 7th, yet I had neutralized him in a single breath. I drove the short sword slowly into his abdomen. He gasped, his face turning white from the agony. Let him go, another voice barked. The crowd scrambled back even further. A tall, broad-shouldered young man with thick eyebrows stepped forward. It was Qin Shang, one of the top 4 geniuses of the Qin family. At 17, he had already reached the 7th stage of body refining. In this world, the 7th stage was the start of the upper 3 stages. It was a massive threshold. At his level, he possessed the strength of 63 bulls. In Liyue City, he was considered a true powerhouse. Release Qin Ming, Qin Shang ordered, his eyes burning, or your death will be very painful. I glanced over at Fei Fei, who was still safe with Xiao Yuan, then looked back at Qin Shang. No. Qin Shang's face turned a bruised shade of purple. Do you have any idea what you're doing? Killing Qin Shang was a capital offense. If you don't release Qin Ming, the Yi family will be wiped off the map. I started to laugh again, but there was no humor in it this time. The Qin family is truly arrogant. My sister is only 10 years old. Qin Shang dragged her into this building like an animal, and you know exactly what he intended to do. Qin Ming showed up and demanded I release him without asking a single question. And now you're doing the same. Qin Shang looked at Qin Shang's corpse and felt a flicker of annoyance, but it didn't change his mind. To him, the Yi family was beneath notice. A fallen family had no right to strike back, regardless of the provocation. I don't know how you survived or how you reached the 5th stage, Qin Shang said. But if you persist in this madness, your family dies. Good. Very good, I hissed. I hated being threatened more than anything in 2 lifetimes. You want him back? Fine. I pulled the short sword out of Qin Ming's gut. Before anyone could react, I swung it in a blinding arc across his throat. I'll give you his body. Blood sprayed across my face as Qin Ming slumped to the ground, his life pouring out onto the cobblestones. I stood there, covered in the blood of my enemies, and waited for the next one to try me. Qin Shang was officially pushed past his breaking point. He let out a cold snort, his body lunging forward like a predator. His hands flattened into palms, aiming directly for my chest. Tiger's pounce. I didn't dodge. I didn't even flinch. I clenched my fists and swung downward with everything I had. Our attacks collided with a heavy thud. The impact sent me skidding back several feet, but Qin Shang's momentum was ground to a total halt. The crowd gasped. They couldn't believe their eyes. Qin Shang was a genuine 7th-stage body refining expert, capable of unleashing the strength of 63 bulls. I was only at the 5th stage. By all logic, he should have crushed my bones. You're stronger than a typical 5th-stage brat, Qin Shang said, his voice dripping with cold arrogance. But in front of me, you're still nothing. I didn't waste my breath on words. I tightened my grip, feeling the power coil in my muscles like a spring. I stared him down, my body tensed and ready. Since you're so determined to die, I'll kill you here, Qin Shang hissed. Then I'll go to the Yi Manor and wipe out every last member of your family. He charged again. This time, his movements were unpredictable, his hands shifting in a blur of motion. Spiritual energy gathered in his palms, vibrating with a strange, fluctuating intensity. Soul-hunting palm. He reached me in a heartbeat, thrusting his palm forward. The air itself seemed to hum and vibrate from the force. I remained eerily calm. He had the strength of 63 bulls, far surpassing my 49, but I had the tiger roar fist, a technique far superior to anything in this world. Spirit Tiger Array. I yelled internally. I threw both fists forward. In that instant, my fist force created a rippling wave in the air, a shock wave that surged outward. Tiger God's Roar. As the energy peaked, I shifted my stance. My fists clapped together, and a thunderous sound like a literal tiger's roar exploded in the air. The sound hit Qin Shang's mind like a physical hammer. He froze, his expression turning blank for a split second. His spiritual energy grew chaotic, and his palm strike faltered. That was the opening I needed. My Spirit Tiger Array slammed into him. The sound of his chest collapsing was sickeningly loud. Qin Shang sprayed a mouthful of blood and collapsed into the dirt. Silence fell over the street. It was absolute. No one could process what they had just seen. A fifth-stage kid had just systematically dismantled Qin Shang without breaking a sweat. I walked over and picked up the short sword from the ground. I knelt beside him and drove the blade deep into his chest. Blood began to drip steadily onto the stones. I grabbed him by the collar, stood up, and began to drag his body behind me. Tell the Qin family. I called out to the remaining guards. If they want him back alive, come to the Yi Manor. I'll be waiting. I started walking, dragging Qin Shang like a sack of garbage. A long, red trail of blood smeared across the ground behind me. I stopped for a second and looked back at the terrified guards with a thin smile. You should hurry, I said. If you take too long, he'll be a corpse, and you'll have nothing to bring back but a body. The crowd erupted into a frenzy as I walked away. People scrambled in every direction. The guards grabbed the bodies of Qin Ming and Qin Tsang and sprinted toward their estate. Everyone knew it. The balance of power in Liyue City was about to shatter. As I walked toward home, Xiao Yuan followed beside me, still carrying Fei Fei. My sister looked at me with deep worry in her eyes. Brother, she whispered, we've caused such big trouble. The Yun family was already coming, and now the Qin family too. I looked at her and remembered something. I reached into my robe and pulled out a small package wrapped in oil paper. I bought you these candied haws, I said, unwrapping the paper. The fruit was crushed and cracked from the fighting. I sighed. They're all ruined. I'll buy you new ones another day. Fei Fei reached out and took them, clutching the ruined treats to her chest. I don't care. If you bought them for me, I love them. I looked at her smile and felt a genuine grin spread across my face. In my past life, I was the leader of the 10 emperors, but I was an orphan. I reached the peak of power without ever knowing what a family felt like. Now, those two lives had merged. I was the heavenly emperor, but I was also Yi Wushuang. This bond, forged in hardship, was the most precious thing I owned. Fei Fei, I said firmly, I promise you, no one will ever lay a finger on you again. She took a bite of the candy, and tears started rolling down her cheeks again. She wiped them away, laughing through the sobs. It's too hard. It made my teeth hurt. That's why I'm crying. She was only 10, but she had seen it all. For 3 years, she had watched me practice in the dead of night. She had seen my hands bleed and my legs swell until I couldn't walk. She saw me fail, get frustrated, and cry in secret so our mother wouldn't see. She knew I had agreed to become a servant son-in-law for the Yun family just to keep us fed. I want to practice martial arts too, she said suddenly. I want to be a powerful warrior. Then I can protect you, and Mom, and Uncle. I rubbed her head gently. I'll be waiting for that day. The sun was setting as the three of us reached the Yi Manor. Behind us, the trail of blood served as a grim omen of the storm that was coming. My mother, Lu Yuanmei, and my uncle, Yi Qingfeng, were waiting at the gate, pacing with anxiety. When they saw us, my mother sprinted forward. Wushuang, Fei Fei. She checked us over, finally breathing a sigh of relief. Then she saw my sister's bruised face. Fei Fei, your face, you're bleeding. I'm okay, Mom, Fei Fei said, hugging her. Some bad people tried to hurt me, but brother killed them all. My mother looked up at me, her face pale with shock. Uncle Yi Qingfeng walked over, staring at the massive Xiao Yuan and then at the bleeding body I was dragging. Is that Qin Shang? He asked, his voice trembling. Wushuang, what happened? And who are these people you sent here earlier? I told them to leave, but they refused to budge. I tossed Qin Shang's limp body to Xiao Yuan and looked at my family. Let's go inside. I'll explain everything. Once we were settled in the living room, I told them about going to the soul-slaying hall to earn money and the confrontation with the three Qin brothers. By the time I finished, my mother was in tears again. Mom, why are you crying? I sat next to her and gently wiped her eyes. Don't worry. I promise you, nothing bad is going to happen. The days of the Yi family being bullied are over. He's right, Mom, Fei Fei added. I'm going to be a warrior just like brother. We'll make the Yi family famous again. My mother stopped crying and looked at us, nodding with pride. Don't be sad anymore, I said softly. I have a plan. And Uncle, I found a way to make sure you won't die. My mother and Uncle Yi Qingfeng stared at me, their faces frozen in pure disbelief. I didn't give them time to spiral. The ancestor gave this to me, I said firmly, my voice leaving no room for argument. It involves the secrets of the Yi family bloodline. Now isn't the time for details, but listen to me. In Liyue City, no one can touch us anymore. Every single person who trampled on the Yi family will pay the price. One day, I will take you back to the imperial capital and restore our clan to its former glory. My words weren't just empty promises. In my past life, my soul had split into 9 parts, each living its own legend. My 9th soul was the one who founded the Yi family 500 years ago, leading them to their peak. Seeing them fall this far in just a few centuries made my blood boil. Someone had engineered this downfall, and I intended to find out exactly who. Uncle Yi Qingfeng looked at me, his hands trembling violently. Do you really have a way? I could see the desperation in his eyes. He had watched his own father die in agony at 40. He had watched his older brother and sister die before they even hit that age. Uncle was 38. He had spent every day waiting for a death sentence he couldn't escape. I stood up and gave him a confident smile. I do, but we take it one step at a time. Mom, I need you to manage the new servants I bought. Tomorrow, people will arrive to renovate the manor. The Yi family is getting a fresh start. Fei Fei, go wash your face. That blood is scary. Let Mom bandage your wounds. Fei Fei nodded and followed my mother to the backyard, the new servants trailing behind to start their chores. Uncle Yi Qingfeng stayed by my side, leaning on his cane. He looked toward the front gate, where Xiao Yuan stood like a silent guardian, still gripping the unconscious Qin Shang by the collar. Wu Shuang, Uncle whispered, his voice laced with worry. You killed Qin Song and Qin Ming. You kidnapped Qin Shang. The Qin family will be here any minute. I know, I replied simply. If you know, then why stay? I know you're strong now, level 5 body refining, but compared to the whole Qin family. He trailed off. He knew exactly what I was doing. Bringing Qin Shang here wasn't just a capture, it was a formal declaration of war. Years ago, the Qin family had been the primary vultures who tore away the Yi family's assets. I looked my uncle in the eye. I'm not being reckless. I have a plan for everything. Don't worry. He stared at me for a long moment, then patted my shoulder with a weak laugh. All right, I trust you. I walked to the front gate and looked up at Xiao Yuan. He was a head taller than me, built like a mountain, and eyes as cold as ice. If you're worried I'll get you killed, you can leave now, I told him. Xiao Yuan didn't flinch. You're not an idiot, he grunted. You killed their people, and you're just sitting here waiting for them. I'm curious to see what you've actually prepared. My preparation? I looked around at the crumbling walls. My preparation is this courtyard. This is my home. This is where I start over. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of blood orange, I changed into a clean white robe with a green silk belt. I dragged a chair to the front gate and sat down, resting a rusted iron sword across my lap. Xiao Yuan stood beside me, his hair trimmed and his beard shaved, looking every bit the lethal warrior he was. Beside us, Qin Shang was pinned to a pillar by his hands, still unconscious. I still don't see where your confidence comes from, Xiao Yuan muttered. You'll see soon enough, I said. I ran my thumb along the edge of the rusted blade, slicing my palm. I let the blood drip onto the metal. Instead of running off, the blood was instantly absorbed. The rust began to flake away, falling to the ground like dead skin to reveal a shimmering, crystalline blade beneath. The Tianya sword. This was the weapon of the Yi family ancestor, Yi Wentian. I don't know how it survived the centuries, but the Yun family had treated it like a piece of junk. They were fools. In the entire Qin Empire, experts would kill each other just to catch a glimpse of this blade. But only I knew how to wake its spirit. Its name is Tianya, I whispered, feeling the blade hum. It's peerless. Even though I can only unlock the first seal right now, it's already stronger than any ordinary spiritual weapon. The red glow of the sunset lingered, but the silence of the street was broken. A heavy, murderous aura rolled toward us from the corner of the block. The Qin family had arrived. The news had spread like wildfire. I had killed 2 of their own and dragged their 3rd son through the streets like a dog. Now, dozens of Qin family warriors flooded the space in front of our gate, while hundreds of onlookers gathered in the distance to watch the spectacle. They all wanted to see how a lone teenager planned to protect his dying family. Yi Wushuang, a booming, furious voice, shook the windows. Do you have any idea what you've done? The man speaking was Qin Yunda. He was a giant of a man, nearly 2 meters tall, with a beard that covered his jaw and muscles that looked ready to explode. He was a level 9 body refining expert, one of the heavy hitters of the Qin family. You killed my kin and took my son, Qin Yunda growled, his eyes cold. You've signed the Yi family's death warrant. I looked up at him, bored by his posturing. Qin Yunda, I said calmly. Is this the attitude you bring to a negotiation? Negotiation? You think you're worthy? He sneered. At his signal, dozens of warriors stepped forward, their combined pressure enough to make a normal person collapse. Not worthy, huh? I flicked my wrist. A flash of light erupted from the Tianya sword. A streak of sword chi hissed through the air and pierced straight through Qin Shang's leg. The unconscious boy let out a blood-curdling scream as he jolted awake, clutching at the pillar he was nailed to. Dad! Qin Shang shrieked, his eyes wide with agony as he saw his father. Dad, save me. Kill this bastard. Qin Yunda's roar shook the air, but his feet ground to a halt. I didn't stop. I couldn't. Qin Shang was his only son, his golden ticket. In a few months, the Qingyun Academy from the capital would arrive in Liyue City to recruit disciples. At the 7th level of body refining, Qin Shang had a real shot at getting in. If he succeeded, his father's power within the Qin family would skyrocket. Can we talk now? I asked again, my voice flat. Qin Yunda let out a cold snort, his face twisting. What do you want? What do I want? I let out a dry, mocking laugh. When the Yi family first rooted itself in Liyue City, we were strong. Then we began to fall. And your Qin family? You were the ones who pushed us the hardest. 500 years ago, the Yi clan was a titan in the imperial capital. After being forced out, we moved here. But in just a few decades, our decline accelerated. The Qin and Wei families had been picking at our carcass in the dark for years. Even when I was a child, we still had dozens of servants. We had enough wealth to last generations. You stole more than half of our properties, I continued, staring Qin Yunda down. That's worth at least 1 million silver taels. Today, you'll pay 1 million silver to buy back your son's life. Qin Yunda froze. 1 million. He looked at me like I was insane. A massive family like the Qin might see a few million in turnover a year, but their actual profit was barely a fraction of that. Asking for 1 million was a death sentence for their treasury. Too much. I smirked. Fine. 3 million then. Yi Wushuang. Don't push your luck. Qin Yunda screamed. Push my luck. My eyes went cold. When your nephew bullied my sister, was that pushing his luck? When your family trampled on our dignity for years, was that too much? This is just the interest. I didn't wait for his answer. I flicked the sword again. Another scream ripped through the air as the blade pierced Qin Shang's other leg. The boy didn't even have the strength to yell anymore. He just whimpered, a broken mess of a human being. Stop. Just stop. Qin Yunda yelled, his hands shaking. I'll give it to you. I'll go get the money. Just wait. He turned around as if to leave. But I saw the shift in his eyes. He glanced toward the corner of the street, a cold, murderous light flickering in his gaze. Suddenly, several archers stepped out from the shadows. They pulled their bows taut and released. Arrows hissed through the air, aiming straight for my throat. I spun away, forced to retreat from Qin Shang's side to avoid the volley. Kill him. Now. Qin Yunda spun back around, his face a mask of fury. You think you can threaten me with my son's life? You're too green, kid. You're naive. At his command, several high-level warriors, 6th and 7th level experts, rushed forward. They cut off my path back to the hostage. Qin Yunda thought he had won. He thought he'd baited me away. I just smiled. I had been waiting for this. You were waiting for me to leave his side, weren't you? I laughed. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. I gripped the Tianya sword. A terrifying aura exploded from the blade. I took a single step and stood firmly on the stone stairs of the Yi mansion. Today, I would hold this line alone. The Qin warriors closed in, their blades flashing. A few days ago, I wouldn't have been able to control this body well enough to fight them all. But after a dozen life-and-death battles in the soul-slaying hall and my fights with Qin Ming, my muscle memory had finally caught up to my soul. One man lunged. I shifted an inch, his blade whistling past my ear. My sword moved like a blur, burying itself deep into his chest. One strike. One kill. A 6th level warrior was dead before he could scream. I didn't know any fancy sword techniques for this level yet, but with the Tianya sword in my hand, I didn't need them. My movements were pure instinct. I was a whirlwind of steel. Another warrior, a 7th level expert, tried to flank me. I swung wide, the blade shearing through his arm. Blood sprayed the pavement. The others faltered, their eyes wide with terror. They started to back away. The crowd in the street was silent, stunned by the sheer violence of it. Move aside. Qin Yunda couldn't watch anymore. He charged, his massive frame moving with surprising speed. Sky Sparrow fall. Gale fist. His fist tore through the air, the pressure hitting me like a physical wall. I didn't have time to dodge. I slammed the flat of my blade against my chest to block. The impact was deafening. I was blown back, my boots skidding across the stone. My face went pale, and a trickle of blood ran down my chin. I hit the front door of the mansion hard. Xiao Yuan stepped forward to help, but I raised a hand. Stay back. I wiped the blood from my mouth and grinned. Just watch the hostage. No one crosses this threshold today. In your dreams. Qin Yunda roared. He was desperate now. If he couldn't save his son, he would at least erase the Yi family. I let out a cold laugh and raised my sword high into the sky. 4 spirits Sky Sparrow array. Activate. I felt the connection. Deep within the mansion, buried inside the ancient statue of Yi Wentian, a dormant power woke up. For pillars of light shot into the sky from the corners of the estate, reaching 100 meters high. In the clouds, the faint, shimmering shapes of the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise appeared. It was a holy, crushing pressure. The light from the 4 spirits funneled down, pouring into the Tianya sword, and then directly into my veins. My strength surged. My aura swelled. I wasn't a 5th level warrior anymore. Under the blessing of the array, my power spiked to the 8th level. The sword hummed with newfound life. This array was 5 centuries old, a mere fragment of its former glory, but it was more than enough. It could defend, and it could empower. I felt the raw energy thrumming under my skin. I frowned slightly, feeling the strain on my muscles. This body is still too weak, I muttered to myself. In my past life, this array would have made me a god. Now, it would just have to be enough to kill a few pests. The power of the array should have pushed me from the 5th level all the way to the 9th. But the 8th level would have to be enough. I turned my gaze back to Qin Yunda, my eyes cold with killing intent. It was time to settle the score for everything his family had done to mine. Since you're so unwilling to leave, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper, then don't leave at all. I gripped the Tianya sword. The blade erupted in a brilliant, blinding light. Qin Yunda's face darkened as he threw 2 massive punches, his inner energy exploding outward. The collision of his fists and my blade created a deafening boom that shook the street. But as the smoke cleared, Qin Yunda's expression twisted. He coughed up a spray of blood and stumbled back, his boots skidding across the stone. How is this possible? He gasped. He could feel it. In that one strike, I had achieved a perfect union between man and blade. The power I unleashed wasn't just strong. It surpassed anything a normal warrior at the peak of the body refining realm could produce. Are you afraid now? I asked. I didn't give him time to breathe. I stepped forward, swinging the sword again. There were no flashy moves or complicated techniques. I simply moved with the rhythm of my soul, each strike a natural extension of my will. Qin Yunda was forced to block, his face pale with effort as he struggled to keep his head on his shoulders. Fourth master, take this, a Qin family guard shouted. He tossed a heavy broadsword through the air. Qin Yunda caught it and swung wildly, trying to regain his momentum. I let out a cold snort. The Tianya sword seemed to pulse in my hand, sensing my fury. The sword chi became more violent, more savage. Even with a weapon in his hand, Qin Yunda was helpless. I dismantled his every move, my blade dancing inches from his skin, forcing him into a desperate retreat. The crowd watched in stunned silence. This made no sense. This morning, I was a half-dead cripple being dragged to the pill pavilion by my mother. I was the beast who had supposedly attacked my own sister-in-law. I was a rat that everyone wanted to kick. But now, as the sun began to set, I stood at the gates of my home, a god of war holding the life of the Qin family's fourth master in my hands. Die! I warred. I lunged, the Tianya sword aiming straight for his heart. Qin Yunda panicked, slamming his broadsword horizontally across his chest to block. But it was a feint. At the last second, I changed my trajectory. I leaped into the air, bringing my blade down in a crushing vertical arc. Qin Yunda couldn't react in time. He jerked his head to the side at the final moment, but the blade buried itself deep into his shoulder. Blood sprayed into the air. His shoulder was nearly severed, a mess of mangled flesh and bone. He hit the ground with a heavy thud, his knees buckling. He couldn't get back up. The pain must have been blinding, but I didn't give him the mercy of unconsciousness. I pressed the cold, sharp edge of the Tianya sword against his throat. Move, and I kill you, I said. Qin Yunda looked up. I stood over him, my white robes stained crimson, the last rays of the setting sun casting a long, terrifying shadow over my frame. Stop! A voice thundered from the end of the street. A dozen figures rushed toward us. At the front were two men radiating intense killing intent. My eyes narrowed. It was the second master, Qin Shanming, and the third master, Qin Haishao. Aside from the clan leader himself, these were the strongest men in the Qin family. Second brother, third brother. Qin Yunda croaked. He stopped talking when he felt the cold bite of my blade against his windpipe. I didn't even look at the newcomers. I simply sat down on the steps of the Yi mansion, keeping my sword steady. Yi Wushuang, do you have any idea what you're doing? Qin Shanming shouted. After the shameful things you did at the Yun family, you dare. If you're here to give me a lecture, don't bother. I interrupted. I pressed the blade harder, and a thin line of red appeared on Qin Yunda's neck. Stop! Qin Shanming yelled, his hands shaking. We can talk. Just let him go. Let him go. I laughed. Earlier, I said Qin Shan's life was worth 3 million silver taels. Now that I have Qin Yunda, the price has gone up. 10 million. I'll only say it once. Give me the money, or I kill them both. Qin Shanming and Qin Haishao looked at each other in disbelief. They thought I was insane. Even if I got the money, did I really think the Qin family would let this go? We were past the point of no return. Yi Wushuang, you dog! Qin Haishao screamed. You betrayed your own family, you attacked your sister-in-law, and now you think you can extort us? I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just looked at Xiao Yuan. Kill Qin Shang. Xiao Yuan didn't hesitate. He pulled the dagger from Qin Shang's mangled hands and slit the boy's throat in one clean motion. No, Shanger. The crowd gasped. They couldn't believe it. I had actually done it. I had executed a scion of the Qin family right in front of his uncles. Listen closely, I said, my voice echoing in the sudden silence. What happened with the Yun family is my business. I'll handle the truth in my own time. It's not your place to use it as a weapon against me. Now for the last time. Are you paying or not? The two Qin brothers hesitated, their faces contorted with rage and indecision. Fine, I said, standing up. If you won't pay, then prepare to collect your bodies. Don't you dare, they roared. I looked down at Qin Yunda. Whether they pay or not, you are always going to die today. You owe my uncle a leg. It's time to pay the debt. Before they could move, I flicked my wrist. The Tianya sword sliced through Qin Yunda's throat. Blood gushed out, staining the steps. He tried to clutch his neck, but there was nothing left to hold together. He slumped over, dead. Fourth brother. Inside the gates, my uncle, Yi Qingfeng, began to sob. He remembered that day years ago when the Qin family had seized our property. He had gone to reason with them, and Qin Yunda had personally broken his leg, leaving him a cripple who needed a cane to walk. I was just a child then, but I had seen it all. I had never forgotten the way Qin Yunda laughed while my uncle screamed. I turned back toward the house and gave my uncle a small, grim smile. I remember every debt, uncle, and they are all going to pay. Yi Qingfeng wiped his tears and nodded fiercely. Good. But the air outside grew heavy. Qin Haixiao's aura exploded. He wasn't just a body-refining warrior. He had reached the pulse condensation realm. He began to channel raw spiritual energy, his palms glowing with a terrifying power that felt like a hurricane about to break. The real fight was just beginning. The air grew heavy as Qin Haixiao stepped forward, his massive frame casting a long shadow. The onlookers felt the shift in pressure and scrambled back, sensing the impending carnage. With a roar, he lunged. His palm struck out, channeling every ounce of his pulse condensation power into a massive glowing print that seemed to blot out the sky. It was a killing blow meant to erase me from existence. I looked at his twisted, arrogant face and felt nothing but cold amusement. I didn't move an inch. Instead, I flicked my fingers, weaving spiritual runes into the air. In an instant, the four-spirit heavenly sparrow formation clicked into place. For pillars of blinding light erupted from the corners of the Yi Villa. The phantoms of the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise materialized in the sky, their divine presence towering over the street. As Qin Haixiao's fist neared my face, the azure dragon let out a world-shaking roar and lunged. The collision sounded like a mountain collapsing. The bluestone pavement disintegrated into a massive crater, and Qin Haixiao's spiritual palm shattered like glass. He didn't just stop. He was thrown back as if hit by lightning. A spray of blood painted the air, and his entire right arm exploded into a red mist. He collapsed into the dirt, screaming, as dust settled over the stunned crowd. Silence fell. It was the kind of silence that follows a disaster. Finally, Qin Shanming snapped out of his shock. He rushed forward to pull his brother back, frantically trying to staunch the bleeding. He looked up at the four divine shadows flickering above our home, his face pale with terror. He couldn't understand it. How could a fallen family like ours have a defensive formation this powerful? I stood at the gates, my expression cold. Even Xiao Yuan, who had stayed to watch, was speechless. He knew I understood formations, but this was different. To cripple a pulse condensation expert with a single backlash required a master-level array. In his mind, there was no way a level 5 body refiner like me should have the strength to set this up. The Qin family guards retreated, none of them daring to take another step toward the gate. If the third master could lose an arm in a second, they knew they would be turned to ash. You were prepared for this, Qin Shanming hissed, his eyes filled with venom. Naturally, I replied. Qin Sangqi deserved to die for touching my sister. Qin Ming and Qin Shang thought they could demand my family's lives. And Qin Yunda? He owed my uncle a leg. I'm just collecting the interest. Qin Shanming's rage was boiling over, but he wasn't a fool. He knew that if he charged, he'd end up exactly like his brother. He looked at the shimmering barrier and let out a mocking laugh. You think this turtle shell can protect the Yi family forever? From this day on, my men will surround this house day and night. We will starve you out. I leaned against the gate, a smirk playing on my lips. Actually, that sounds perfect. I've already stocked enough food for months. Please, send your men. I hope they're all below the pulse condensation realm. It'll give me great practice. I'll kill a few, rest for a couple of days, and then come out to kill a few more. Let's see who runs out first, your guards or my patients. Qin Shanming's face turned an ugly shade of purple. He knew I was right. The Qin family couldn't afford to keep their strongest warriors pinned down here. They had businesses to run and towns to manage. If they stayed, the family's wealth would bleed dry. Second master, a guard whispered, leaning toward him. We need to get the third master back for healing. We need to talk to the clan head. Qin Shanming looked at his unconscious, mutilated brother and growled. He glared at me one last time. Yi Wushuang, don't you dare take a single step outside this house. We're leaving. Wait, I called out as they turned to go. Take your trash with you. I kicked 2 heavy bundles out of the gate. They tumbled across the dirt, stopping at Qin Shanming's feet. It was the bodies of Qin Yunda and his son, Qin Shang. Qin Shanming's fist shook so hard I thought his skin might tear, but he didn't look back. He signaled his men to grab the corpses and retreated into the night. The crowd dispersed, but the city was far from quiet. News like this travels faster than fire. Across town at the Yun family estate, a sharp scream echoed through the halls. Yun Boyan, the head of the Yun family, slammed his hands onto his desk and stood up, his eyes bulging. "What did you say? Say it again." The scout bowed low, trembling. "It's true, master. Yi Wushuang killed Qin Sangqi and Qin Ming. He executed Qin Yunda and Qin Shang right in front of the Yi gates. And when Qin Haishao tried to break in, a massive formation blew his arm off. He's barely alive." "A formation? In that dump of a house?" Yun Boyan paced the room like a caged animal. "We gave them the worst, most isolated estate in the city. How could there be a formation there? And how is he a level 5 body refiner? I personally destroyed his meridians. I poisoned his marrow with soul-extinguishing powder. He should be a corpse, not a cultivator." His voice climbed in pitch. "If he reaches the pulse condensation realm while hiding behind that barrier, he'll hunt us all down. He hates us. We have to do something." "Father, why are you panicking?" A calm, melodic voice cut through his spiral. Yun Qinyue walked into the hall, her purple silk dress flowing behind her. She looked as elegant and composed as ever. "Qinyue, you don't understand," Yun Boyan stammered. "Yi Wushuang is alive. He's strong. If he grows." "So what if he grows?" She interrupted, her voice dripping with disdain. "Even if he's a genius, it will take him a year to reach pulse condensation. The Qin family won't wait that long. Yi Wushuang killed the clan head's favorite brother tonight. They won't rest until he's dead." "But the formation—" "The formation is temporary," she said firmly. "Qin Yongda might not be able to break it, but his son, Qin Hao, was just scouted by the main Qin clan in the imperial capital. His status is about to skyrocket. When he returns with experts from the capital, that formation will be nothing more than a birdcage. We won't even have to lift a finger. They'll slaughter the Yi family for us." Yun Boyan froze, then let out a long, relieved laugh. "Of course, I forgot about Qin Hao. Once he's backed by the main clan, Yi Wushuang is as good as dead. The Qin clan in the imperial capital was a true titan, a powerhouse in the Qingyun Empire just like my family had been in our prime. If they sent even a few experts from the pulse condensation realm, I would be dead." Yun Qinyue smiled, watching her father panic. Yun Boyan was always like this, reactive and indecisive. Even back when they were planning to break our engagement, he had been paralyzed by the fear of a bad reputation. It was Qinyue who had come up with the plan to frame me for assaulting her sister, Yun Zian. That lie had dragged my name through the mud and allowed her to dump me like trash before securing a new engagement with Qin Hao. "Father," Qinyue said, "Yun Chang was killed today at the Soul Wandering Hall." "What?" Yun Boyan roared. "Who would dare touch a member of the Yun family? One strange thing after another is happening today." "I've already sent people to investigate," she replied calmly. "We'll have news soon." Yun Boyan let out a breath, looking at her with pride. "Good. You're the best thing I ever produced, daughter. Beautiful and talented." Qinyue walked out of the hall and stared into the dark night. "Yi Wushuang," she whispered to herself. "It seems your family was hiding something after all. I spent 3 years looking after you, and you still kept secrets from me. You truly deserve what's coming." Meanwhile, across the city at the Qin family estate, the atmosphere was heavy. A healer wearing an alchemist's robe stepped out of a side room, and the men in the hall stood up immediately. The leader was Qin Yongda, the clan head. He looked a bit like his brother Qin Yunda, but with a more refined air. "Master Mo Chuan," Qin Yongda asked urgently, "how is my third brother?" The violent spiritual energy ravaged his body, the old man replied. "I saved his life, but his arm is gone for good. He can't use any force for at least a month. He needs rest." Qin Yongda's face darkened. Beside him, Qin Shanming growled, "That bastard Yi Wushuang." Qin Yongda signaled for his brother to be quiet and thanked the healer. "I'm sorry for calling you here so late, master." "It's no trouble," Mo Chuan said, his brow furrowed. "But did Yi Wushuang really do this?" "This morning at the St. Pill Pavilion, I saw him myself. He was as good as dead. How did he recover so fast? No one had an answer. After the healer left, the elders sat back down, their faces grim. Chief, we have to do something, one elder said. Qin Yunda is crippled. Qin Shang, Qin Ming, and Qin Tsang are all dead. The whole city is laughing at us. Brother, Qin Shanming snapped, I'll go to the Yi estate right now. I'll sit outside their gates until they run out of food. I'll wait for that brat to crawl out. Calm down, Qin Yongda said. If you go there alone and he hits you with that formation, what then? From what I've heard, he can use the formation to attack or even draw its power into his own body. That's how he killed our fourth brother. He knew we were coming and set a trap. Can you be sure he doesn't have another one ready? Qin Shanming went silent. Qin Yongda wasn't just the chief because of his strength. He had built the Qin family up over the last decade to rival the city lord's power. He was a strategist. Then what do we do? The elders asked. My family was like a hedgehog now, small, but too prickly to swallow. The main Qin clan in the imperial capital has already sent word, Qin Yongda said slowly. An elder named Zhao Ling has arrived to escort Qin Hao. The room brightened. Our local Qin family was just a small branch of the massive imperial clan. Now that Qin Hao had been recruited, our status was rising. We can't break that formation, Qin Yongda continued. But the main clan definitely has array masters who can. Once the barrier is down, Yi Wushuang is just a level 5 body refiner. Killing him will be like stepping on an ant. The elders nodded, but Qin Shanming looked worried. Will the main clan really help us with a local grudge? Especially since Howard just joined them. In the capital, array masters were elite figures. They didn't just run errands for branch families. If we just asked them to save our reputation, they'd ignore us, Qin Yongdao admitted. To them, we are insignificant. But think about it. Yi Wushuang was dying this morning, and now he's at level 5. That Yi house is an old Yun property. It shouldn't have a formation. If we tell the main clan that the fallen Yi family has suddenly produced a genius and hidden treasures, they won't be able to resist. The elders' eyes lit up. Everyone knew how powerful the Yi family used to be. People thought we were broke, but if there were secret weapons or ancient legacies involved, the Imperial Qin clan would come running to claim them. A brilliant move, Qin Shanming said. Let them do the dirty work. Qin Yongda sighed. It's the only way. If I could break that array myself, I'd tear him apart right now. Back at the Yi estate, I was sitting on a blue stone in the backyard, my face pale. I let out a long breath and opened my eyes. Channeling the power of the four-spirit Heavenly Sparrow array into my body had put a massive strain on my muscles. It had taken me this long just to stop the shaking. Xiao Yuan stood nearby, watching me in silence. My mother, my sister, and Uncle Qing Feng had finally calmed down. They realized I could actually protect them. Even if we were trapped inside the house, it was better than the years of humiliation they had suffered outside. I didn't expect a broken-down place like this to have a formation strong enough to cripple a pulse condensation expert, Xiao Yuan said, testing me. You didn't set that up yourself, did you? I smiled. Why couldn't it be me? You're a level 5 body refiner, he countered. Your spiritual energy is limited. Even if you knew the patterns, you wouldn't have the strength to lay the foundation. I didn't bother explaining. He was right for a normal cultivator, but I wasn't normal. I was the one who had built this world's laws in the first place. My body was weak, but my soul knew every shortcut in the universe. I looked at Xiao Yuan. Even if he understood the mechanics of the array, he didn't understand the depth of my soul. Setting up a formation isn't just about drawing lines, I told him. It's about the strength of the spirit behind it. He stared at me, clearly impressed but still confused. I decided to change the subject. I had seen something in him during the fight. The reason you go into those uncontrollable rages is because of your bloodline, I said. The Hantian demonic Yuan bloodline. It's a true saint beast lineage. Xiao Yuan stiffened. I continued. You're at the 8th level of body refining, but even that isn't enough to suppress power like that. I'm just curious how someone like you ended up with it. In the world of cultivation, bloodlines are special abilities hidden in the veins, passed down from powerful ancestors. They don't show up in every generation, but when they do, that person is destined to become a peak expert. Xiao Yuan went quiet for a moment, then sighed. I might as well tell you everything. I'm from the Shao clan in the imperial capital. The Shao clan. I knew of them. Years ago, they were a top-tier family, just like my own Yi family used to be. I was born to a concubine, Xiao Yuan muttered, his voice bitter. An illegitimate son, but I unexpectedly awakened the bloodline of our ancestor. For a family, that should be a blessing. But for the legitimate heirs, it was a nightmare. They saw me as a threat to their inheritance. He looked at me with a grim expression. They want me dead. The Soul-Slaying Hall took a private contract from the Shao family to hunt me down. By keeping me here, you're inviting the wrath of one of the most powerful clans in the empire. I have nowhere else to go, but I'll bring you nothing but trouble. I looked at him and laughed. Trouble? If you stay by my side, I'll eventually have a general who can shake the heavens. Why would I be afraid? I stood up, my eyes narrowing as I looked toward the horizon. Whether it's here in Liyue City or later in the capital, there are people I have to kill and things I have to do. I can help you suppress that bloodline. I can even teach you how to master it. Xiao Yuan's eyes lit up with a desperate hope. If you can stop the rages, I will stay. I will never betray you. I want my revenge on the Shao clan, and if I survive, my life belongs to you. Good, I said. I raised my hands. Tiny droplets of blood gathered in my palms, glowing with a soft red light. I began to weave them together, forming intricate symbols no larger than a thumb. They floated in the air, shimmering. Xiao Yuan gasped. A blood spirit charm? That's impossible. You're only at the 5th level of body refining. In this empire, big families used blood spirit charms to stabilize young cultivators whose bloodlines were too strong for their bodies to handle. But you needed to be at the Yuanfu realm, a level far above mine, to create one. And usually, you needed to share the same blood. I didn't explain. I just moved closer and pressed the glowing charms into his chest. They sank into his skin like tiny spirits. Xiao Yuan shivered. His eyes widened as the chaotic energy in his veins suddenly went quiet. The heat in his blood cooled into a gentle stream. It worked. Even though we weren't related, my understanding of the laws allowed me to bypass the rules of this world. How did you do that? He stammered. I just smiled. The Hantian demonic Yuan bloodline is terrifying. At its peak, it can collapse mountains and part rivers. It would be a waste for you to practice generic techniques. I have something better for you. I stepped back and cleared a space in the yard. I didn't use any spiritual energy, just pure movement. I threw a punch, and the air whistled. This is a yellow-grade technique called the 100-Spirit Demonic Palm. There are 7 styles. Watch the moves first, then I'll teach you the heart mantra. I moved through the forms. Each strike was eerie and predatory. To Xiao Yuan, it didn't look like a human was fighting anymore. It looked like a primordial demonic ape swinging its massive arms, hunting for prey. If you master this, I said, catching my breath after the final palm strike, you'll be able to kill 9th-level body refiners while you're still at the 8th. What do you think? It's incredible, Xiao Yuan whispered. Where did you find something like this? He stopped himself and shook his head. Forget it. I won't ask. Just teach me. We spent hours in the moonlight until he had the movements down. By the time we finished, it was late into the night. We went our separate ways, and I retreated to my room. I sat cross-legged on my bed and closed my eyes. In an instant, my surroundings shifted. I was back inside the first floor of the 9-layered, God-resisting pagoda. Time moved differently here. One day outside was only half a day in here, giving me the edge I needed. I spent hours practicing my Tiger Roar fist, perfecting every transition until the movements were as natural as breathing. The battles today had helped me settle into this new body, but I needed more than just my fists. I unsheathed the Tianya sword. The blade hummed with a faint light. Fist techniques were good, but a sword was better for true slaughter. I searched through the vast library of memories in my soul, looking for the right technique. Finally, I found it. The 9 Heavens Sword Script. It was a sharp, aggressive yellow-grade manual with 4 distinct strikes. The first style, Sword Like Clouds. It looked elegant and flowing, but carried a hidden, lethal edge. The second style, Mountain Breaker. A direct, unstoppable thrust designed to pierce through any defense. The third style, Sovereign of the Skies. A strike that placed the user above the opponent, dominating the battlefield. And finally, the The fourth style, piercing the nine heavens. I raised my sword in the silent pagoda. The Yun family was coming, and I intended to be ready. The final style of the nine heavens sword script had only one purpose: to kill. It was a move built on pure, unstoppable momentum. There was no defense, only the absolute will to strike down the enemy. For someone in the body refining realm like me, these four styles were perfect. They focused on moving forward without hesitation. To use this sword was to accept that someone had to die. I stood in the silent space of the pagoda, letting the mental images of the sword forms sink into my mind. I began to practice. Right now, the Yi family was safe, but I knew it was only temporary. Between the Qin family and the Yun family, there were too many people who wanted us erased from existence. The protective formation I had set up could stop attackers at the first 3 levels of the gas-condensing realm. But if someone stronger came along and used raw, brutal force, they could break through. The Four Spirits Azure Sparrow formation was old. Its internal markings were decaying, and it wouldn't hold forever. Besides, I couldn't hide in the Yi residence for the rest of my life. Yun Boyan and his daughter, Yun Qingyue, had dragged my name through the mud. The Qin family had spent years bullying us. I intended to collect every debt they owed me, one by one. To do that, I needed power. Only strength could keep my family safe. I swung the Tianya sword again and again. With every strike, a sharp aura began to gather around the blade. Suddenly, I froze. I stood perfectly still in the center of the pagoda, like a statue. I don't know how much time passed, but then I moved. The blade flashed like drifting clouds. My internal energy exploded outward as I thrust the sword forward. A piercing whistle tore through the air. It wasn't just the strength of the sword itself. A new intent had manifested within me. This intent flowed into the blade, multiplying the power of the strike several times over. I exhaled slowly, a grin spreading across my face. In my past life as the unrivaled Heavenly Emperor, I had reached the peak of alchemy, formation crafting, and swordsmanship. Now that I was starting over, I had actually managed to condense a sword intent seed. A swordsman is more than just his weapon. The fighter, the technique, and the blade must become one. When you reach a level of mastery where the sword moves as naturally as you breathe, the seed awakens. A swordsman with an awakened seed is at least 3 times stronger than one without it. If I could evolve this into true sword intent, the power would be terrifying. I gripped the hilt of the Tianya sword. I didn't expect to progress faster in the way of the sword than I did in my last life. I whispered to myself. With this seed, killing a level 7 body refining expert would be effortless. I didn't stop to celebrate. I stayed in the pagoda and kept training, pushing myself until the next morning. When I finally stepped out of the pagoda and into the living room, I found my mother, Uncle Qing Feng, and Fei Fei waiting for me at the table. It was covered in over a dozen different breakfast dishes. "Brother, you're awake," Fei Fei chirped. She looked genuinely happy. "Breakfast smells amazing today." The servants I had brought back yesterday were already working. My mother didn't have to cook, and my uncle finally had people to look after his needs. Even though we were technically trapped in the house, Fei Fei was beaming. We hadn't had a meal this grand in years. Big Brother Yuan said he didn't need breakfast and asked not to be disturbed, Fei Fei said, pulling me toward a chair. "He's been busy training. You worked hard yesterday, too, so eat up." I ruffled her hair affectionately. "All right, I'm eating." The mood at the table was completely different from the day before. The heavy cloud of despair had lifted. Once we finished, I looked at my mother and uncle. "I'm going out for a while." My mother's face paled. "Wu Shuang, the Qin family is definitely watching us. And the Yuns, once they realize you're fine, they'll try something in the shadows. You can't go." I gave her a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, Mom. I'm going out to buy medicinal herbs and a cauldron. I'm going to start refining pills to help Fei Fei build a strong foundation and to heal Uncle's legs. I'm even going to fix his longevity issue. Your son is capable now. If the Qin or Yun families want me dead, they'll have to get through the people who need me alive first." She hesitated but eventually nodded. "Just, please be careful." I walked to the front gates of the Yi residence. I could feel the eyes on me. The Qin family had scouts everywhere, and I'm sure other families had sent spies too. They were waiting for us to run so they could pick us off. I didn't have to wait long. A carriage pulled up, escorted by a squad of armed men. Young Master Yi, the leader said, bowing respectfully. We are here on the Hall Master's orders to escort you to the Soul-Eating Hall. I climbed into the carriage without a word. The Soul-Eating Hall definitely knew what had happened yesterday. The defensive arrays I was building for them weren't finished yet, so Mo Xian wouldn't let me die. He was a powerful man with a mysterious background. He wasn't afraid of the Qin or Yun families. As the carriage rolled away, spies immediately bolted to report the news. In the Qin manner, Qin Yongda slammed his fist on a table when he heard the update. He was picked up by the Soul-Eating Hall. Alone? Yes, sir, the scout replied. Qin Yongda looked puzzled. When did that brat get involved with them? If Mo Xian is protecting him, this gets complicated. The Soul-Eating Hall had deep roots, not just in Liyue City, but across the entire Qingyun Empire. Find out exactly what his connection is. And tell everyone to keep watching the Yi house. If there's an opening, kill him. If not, do not provoke the hall. At the same time, Yun Xingyue was practicing her martial arts in her courtyard. She looked elegant and lethal in her training robes. She stopped to listen to her subordinate's report. He left the Yi house in a Soul-Eating Hall carriage, she asked, surprised. With 2 level 9 body refining guards? This was a clear message. The Soul-Eating Hall was protecting him. They knew about the slaughter he committed yesterday, and they were siding with him anyway. I was becoming a problem they hadn't anticipated. What was so special about me that the Soul-Eating Hall would risk offending both the Qin and Yun families? That was the question burning through Liyue City. Everyone knew Yun Chong had been killed yesterday by a 16-year-old boy. Back at the Yun Manor, Yun Xinhua suddenly stood up. A terrifying aura erupted from her body, cold and lethal. Yi Wushuang, she hissed, her voice dripping with malice. Good. Very good. She slammed her delicate palm onto the stone table in the pavilion. With a deafening explosion, the heavy stone shattered into fragments. The servants around her dropped to their knees, trembling, too afraid to even breathe. In the Yun family, Yun Xinhua wasn't just known for her talent. She was the strategist. Even the clan leader consulted her on major decisions. I thought you were a dead man walking, she muttered, her eyes narrowing. I didn't expect you to play me like this. You were the one who killed Yin Chong, weren't you? She turned to her subordinates, her voice a sharp command. Go. Find out exactly how Yi Wushuang got involved with the Soul-Eating Hall. Now, as I left the Yi Manor, the entire city was on edge. It wasn't just the Qin and Yun families watching me anymore. Every power player in Liyue City had their eyes on the carriage. Inside the Soul-Eating Hall, Mo Xian and Mo Xiao greeted me with unexpected warmth. Mo Xiao swayed her hips as she walked toward me, a playful smirk on her lips. Little brother, you've got guts, she laughed. Aren't you afraid we've teamed up with the Qin and Yun families to lure you here and kill you? I don't think you would, I replied calmly. Oh, and why is that? She asked, blinking with curiosity. First, you still need me to finish the arrays in this hall. Second, if you tried to kill me on the road, I would have escaped. And third, if you try to kill me inside this building, I won't be the one who dies. I looked her straight in the eye. My gaze was clear and steady. Mo Xiao flinched slightly, caught off guard by my confidence. Mo Xian let out a loud laugh to break the tension. Don't worry. We don't get along with the 4 major families in this city. We have no interest in cooperating with them. In fact, we don't even consider them a threat. The Soul-Eating Hall dealt in a lot of shady business. They wouldn't be able to stand their ground in Liyue City without a massive backbone. Today, I'm here to set up the second core array, I said. Mo Xiao led me deeper into the hall. Mo Xian slipped away to a private room in a different wing. Inside, a young man in his early 20s stood waiting. Mo Xian bowed deeply the moment he saw him. Young master, he's here. The young man turned around, snapping a paper fan shut. He was handsome, with refined features that gave off a gentle, scholarly vibe. His name was Su Qiyuan. Excellent, Su Qiyuan smiled. Show me. Logically, there shouldn't be a level 1 spirit array master in a place like Liyue City. This boy is interesting. If he's truly worth cultivating, our Dark Soul Hall can protect him. Mo Xian kept his head low, smiling. It would be his good fortune to be noticed by you, young master. The Soul-Eating Hall was just a front. Their true backing was the Dark Soul Hall, a mysterious and powerful organization that spanned the entire Qingyan Empire. Even the top clans in the imperial capital didn't dare provoke them. Su Qiyuan was the son of a hall master from the headquarters, a talented array master himself, and a man of immense status. Mo Xian led Su Qiyuan to a hidden observation room. Through a one-way mirror, they watched me in the secret chamber as I began to condense spirit runes. As I worked, Su Qiyuan's expression shifted. It started as curiosity, turned into surprise, and quickly evolved into pure shock. Finally, he looked like a man who had just seen a miracle. Mo Xian didn't know much about arrays, but he could read the young master's face. Was I really that gifted? Brilliant, Su Qiyuan whispered, gripping his fan tight. How? How does he know how to do that? He wasn't really asking Mo Xian. He was talking to himself. Inside the chamber, it took me half an hour to finish the second array, the small thunder array. I integrated it perfectly into the wind element 5-row array I had built previously. The two arrays hummed in resonance, connecting with the smaller formations around the room. The air in the soul-eating hall shifted instantly, feeling heavier and more dangerous. Done, I said, wiping sweat from my forehead. I'll come back tomorrow for the third one. Once all three are fused, anyone below the 4th level of the pulse condensation realm who tries to cause trouble here will die instantly. Mo Xiao smiled brightly. Hard work, Master Yi. You paid me. I'm just doing the job, I replied. Just as I finished speaking, 2 figures walked into the room. If I'm not mistaken, that second array was a level 1 small thunder array, the young man in green said, tapping his fan against his palm. From what I know, that array requires at least 180 spirit runes. But I saw you do it with only 150. Not only that, you fused it with a wind element array. One is for sealing, the other for attacking. Usually, different attributes clash and fail. How did you manage to harmonize them? I looked at him and frowned. I didn't like strangers questioning my methods. Mo Xian saw my annoyance and jumped in. Master Yi, this is Master Su Qiyuan. He is also a spirit array master. I didn't lower my guard. Hall Master Mo, you should know that alchemists, blacksmiths, and array masters all have their own secrets. You're asking too much. Mo Xian froze, realizing he had overstepped. Su Qiyuan realized his mistake as well. He quickly cupped his hands in a respectful salute. I am Su Qiyuan. Please forgive my rudeness. I heard there was a genius in Liyue City and wanted to see for myself. I truly wish to learn from you. Mo Xian was stunned. Su Qiyuan was a genuine level 1 spirit array master, yet he was using the phrase, learn from you, when talking to a teenager. My expression softened slightly. The wind element array is a seal. The thunder array is an attack. If you're truly a level 1 master, you should know these 2 arrays share 7 common runes. I know that, Su Qiyuan said quickly. But 7 common runes aren't enough to stop the 2 arrays from rejecting each other. Rejection only happens if you don't understand the balance, I said coolly. As long as they aren't polar opposites like fire and water, you can always find a resonance. You just have to find the right moment. When you draw the runes, your mind must go where the energy flows. Everything in the world can be used by the mind. If you understand the flow of energy, you can merge any elements you desire. I spoke calmly, my voice steady as I explained the intricacies of array formation. Occasionally, I would trace a spirit rune in the air with my finger, letting the golden light flicker for a second. Every time I did, Su Qiyuan nodded like a student listening to a grandmaster. We talked for over an hour. During that time, Su Qiyuan couldn't help himself. He kept peppering me with questions about level 1 spirit arrays. I answered them all. I wasn't trying to be a teacher, but as a former heavenly emperor, I had my pride. Seeing his sincere desire to learn, I treated him like a junior descendant who needed guidance. After a long silence, Su Qiyuan looked at me differently. His eyes were practically glowing with admiration. I remained expressionless, though internally, I felt a bit awkward. I really didn't need a man looking at me with that much passion. Young Master Yi, Su Qiyuan said, cupping his hands with deep sincerity. If you don't despise me, I would like to become sworn brothers with you. Beside us, Ruo Xian and Mo Xian froze. Sworn brothers? Su Qiyuan was the son of a hall master from the Dark Soul Temple, the power behind the Soul Slayer Hall. At 19, He was already a level 1 spirit array master. His status was massive. And here he was, begging to be the brother of a teenager from a fallen family. I raised an eyebrow and waved him off. I'm not interested. Being my brother? He didn't have the qualifications. Su Chiyuan bit his lip, looking like he was making a life-changing decision. Suddenly, he dropped to his knees. The sound of his knees hitting the floor echoed in the room. Young Master Yi, if you won't have me as a brother, please, let me be your disciple. Mo Xian and his daughter looked like they had turned to stone. This was insane. Su Chiyuan had only listened to me speak for an hour, and now he was throwing away his dignity to beg for a master? They didn't understand what was going on in Su Chiyuan's head. He had grown up in the Dark Soul Temple. He had been taught by level 2 and level 3 masters his whole life. But none of them, not one, had explained the Tao of arrays as clearly as I just had. My insights weren't just theories. They were the absolute truth of the universe. To him, I wasn't just a genius. I was something beyond human. I frowned even deeper. I had no intention of taking a disciple. I had only shared some knowledge because I saw his pure heart for the craft. Now he wanted to be my student? In the vastness of the heavens, only a handful of people were worthy of being taught by me. In this tiny Qingyan empire, there was no one. Young Master Yi, Su Chiyuan pleaded, seeing my hesitation. Even just an unofficial disciple is fine. Ruo Xian and Mo Xian were completely floored. They didn't know much about arrays, but they knew I was only at the 5th level of the body refining realm. Watching a high-status master beg to be a servant student to a weak teenager was the most shocking thing they had ever seen. I have no interest in taking disciples, I said firmly. If you want to learn, I can give you some pointers from time to time. But there will be no master-disciple title. And definitely no sworn brothers. Good. That's enough. Su Chiyuan jumped up, his face beaming with excitement. Getting your guidance is more than I could ask for. He wiped the dust off his robes and grinned at me. I was actually just passing through Liyue City on my way to the mountains. When Hall Master Mo mentioned you, I was curious. I'm so glad I stayed to meet you. Since Mo Xian told you about me, he probably told you about my situation, I said. I have a lot to do. I won't have much time for you. I know about the Yun and Qin families, Su Chiyuan said, his eyes turning cold. They are blind fools. If you want, I can help you wipe them out right now. Mo Xian looked at him like he had lost his mind. He was treating me like a god. No need, I said dismissively. My business, I handle myself. I turned to Mo Xian. Hall Master, I'll return tomorrow to finish the final array. That will fulfill our deal. I wanted that 30,000 taels of gold. With that, my family would never be hungry again. Young Master Yi, Mo Xian said quickly. Since you are teaching Master Su, 30,000 taels is far too little for your services. His business is his. Our deal is ours. I replied, cupping my hands to leave. Where are you going, young Master Yi? Su Chiyuan scrambled to follow me. It's not safe for you in the city right now. Let me escort you. As we walked out, Mo Xian and Mo Xiao watched us go, their heads spinning. Is his array Tao really that strong? Mo Xiao whispered. I don't know. Mo Xian sighed. But Su Chiyuan is a genius taught by the best. If he's this desperate to follow Yi Wushuang, then Wushuang must have experienced something incredible before he nearly died. The Yun and Qin families, they won't be sleeping well tonight. Outside the Soul Slayer Hall, I walked with a steady pace while Su Chiyuan hovered behind me like a loyal guard. Where to, young master? He asked with a grin. The St. Pill Pavilion, I said. I need medicinal ingredients. Su Chiyuan blinked. Ingredients? Don't tell me. You know alchemy too? I glanced at him. Yes. My God. Su Chiyuan slapped his forehead and looked at the sky. How is this fair? Your array knowledge is beyond master level, and you're an alchemist? Please tell me you don't know weapon forging too. I just smiled. If you're going to follow me, talk less. Understood. From now on, whenever you leave the Yi house, I am your personal bodyguard. Anyone who touches you has to go through me first. Shut up. Yes, sir. We walked through the streets of Liyue City. People stopped and stared. They recognized me, the disgraced son of the Yi family, the one who was almost killed by his own fiancée. Is that Yi Wushuang? He actually dares to show his face. Who's that guy with him? He looks like a noble. I ignored the whispers. We arrived at the St. Pil Pavilion. It was a grand, imposing building. Just a few days ago, my mother and sister had pushed me here on a wooden cart, begging for medicine to save my life while I lay half dead. Today I was back, but this time I wasn't here to beg. I stood at the entrance of the St. Pil Pavilion. A young man in blue robes spotted me immediately. His eyes narrowed with instant recognition. "What are you doing at our St. Pil Pavilion?" he demanded, blocking the way. "You open your doors for business," I said calmly. "Naturally, I'm here to buy things." The youth let out a sharp, mocking snort. "You're worse than a beast. My pavilion would sell to a dog before we sold to you. We don't take your business. Get lost." My eyebrows twitched. A few days ago, my mother had brought me here on a cart, begging for medicine. Master Mo Chuan had refused to see us. I didn't hold a grudge for that. They didn't know the truth back then. But the St. Pil Pavilion was a place of trade, and I hadn't offended this boy. "You open your doors for business," I repeated, my voice dropping an octave. "If I come to buy, I am a guest." The youth laughed, a high, irritating sound. "We do business with people, not animals like you. Leave now, or don't blame me, Fong Ming, for throwing you out." As he spoke, several guards from the pavilion rushed forward. The scene was hauntingly similar to the day my mother and sister were humiliated here. I took a slow, deep breath and looked Fong Ming in the eye. "Still not leaving?" Fong Ming sneered. "You think you're safe just because you hid behind some arrays. Showing your face outside the Yi house is suicide. If you don't get out right now, I'll..." Crack. Before he could finish his threat, I stepped forward. My fist blurred through the air. The sound of his nose bone shattering was crisp and satisfying. Blood sprayed across the pavement as Fong Ming collapsed into the dirt. "What happens between me and the Yun family is none of your business," I said, looking down at him. "You enjoyed calling me a beast, didn't you?" I reached down, grabbed him by the collar, and hauled him up. My palm connected with his face in a thunderous slap. Teeth flew from his mouth, clattering on the stone. Fong Ming was at the 6th level of body refining, but my strike left him dazed and incoherent, his face a mask of red. I wasn't done. I gripped his neck, lifting him off his feet while the guards hesitated, unsure whether to charge. "Stop!" a voice roared from inside. Several figures hurried out. At the head was a man with white hair, Master Mo Chuan. He was a high-ranking alchemist, a man of great status in Liyue City. He glared at me, his face twisted in disgust. "Yi Wushuang, what do you think you're doing?" Mo Chuan barked. "You tried to violate your own sister-in-law on your wedding night. You murdered the Qin family's sons, and now you come here to act like a tyrant?" I looked at him and actually started to laugh. "Mo Chuan, I used to respect your name as a first-grade alchemist, but now I see you're nothing special." My gaze turned cold. The truth about what happened with Yun Qingwei and Yun Zian will come out. But let me ask you, did you see me touch her with your own eyes? You're called a master, yet you lack the basic brain power to judge right from wrong. It's pathetic. Mo Chuan turned purple with rage. His finger trembled as he pointed at me. "You men, seize this lecher. Kill him." The guards closed in. Su Chiyuan, who had been watching from the side, stepped in front of me with a grin. "Who dares?" "So you found a helper," Mo Chuan hissed. "No wonder you're so bold." The guards lunged. Su Chiyuan didn't even use his arrays. He wanted to show off. He threw a single punch at a 7th-level body refining guard. The air whistled. Boom. The guard couldn't even dodge. The punch tore through his abdomen, leaving a gruesome hole. He was slammed back against the door, dead before he hit the ground. Pulse condensation realm. Mo Chuan's face went pale. Yesterday, I had an 8th-level bodyguard. Today, I had a pulse condensation expert. He couldn't wrap his head around it. Su Chiyuan spat on the ground. A tiny place like Liyue City, and a mere first-grade alchemist dares to call himself a master? You don't deserve the title. This is rebellion, Mo Chuan screamed. Kill them all. Enough. A commanding voice cut through the chaos. The crowd parted. A man in his 40s stepped out, wearing pale purple robes. He had sharp, eagle-like eyes and a dignified aura. On his shoulder was the embroidered character for Saint. This was Sheng Qian, the head of the St. Pil Pavilion and a famous pulse condensation expert. Pavilion Master, Mo Chuan cried. This Yi Wushuang is out of control. He's causing a riot. Sheng Qian looked at the unconscious Fong Ming on the ground, then at me. Yi Wushuang, why are you causing trouble at my door? Me? Causing trouble? I dropped Fong Ming's limp body like trash. You're a merchant. I came as a guest. But your dog here kept calling me a beast and a monster. Is this how the St. Pill Pavilion treats its customers? Mo Chuan tried to interrupt, but Sheng Qian raised a hand to silence him. He looked at me for a long moment, then bowed slightly. Fong Ming was disrespectful. That is the fault of my pavilion. I, Sheng Qian, apologize to you. Pavilion Master. Mo Chuan gasped. He couldn't believe his leader was apologizing to a disgraced son of a falling house. Sheng Qian ignored him and gestured toward the entrance. Young Master Yi, we are in the business of selling. If you have the money, we have the goods. Please, come in. I studied him. If he had tried to kick me out like Mo Chuan, I wouldn't have cared. But this man was smart. He knew how to handle a situation. Still, the atmosphere was soured. It seems your pavilion isn't exactly welcoming, I said, looking around at the hostile faces. I think I'll take my business elsewhere. Exactly. A melodic voice rang out from the edge of the crowd. If the St. Pill Pavilion won't sell to you, the Qingyun Pavilion will. Would you be interested, young Master Yi? Everyone turned. A carriage had pulled up, and a young woman stepped out. She looked to be about 18, dressed in a water blue skirt that flowed like mist. She was stunning, elegant, slender, with skin like porcelain and eyes that seemed to hold a hidden spark. My name is Xia Yushan, she said with a graceful smile. I'm a manager at the Qingyun Pavilion. If you don't mind, you can ride in my carriage. We have everything you need just a short distance away. The crowd whispered. Xia Yushan was a celebrity in Liyue City. Her organization, the Qingyun Pavilion, had deep roots that reached all the way to the imperial capital. The St. Pill Pavilion was just one branch of a massive network, but the Qingyun Pavilion was no different. Both had deep roots in the imperial capital. While the Qingyun Pavilion was rumored to be backed by the royal family, the origins of the St. Pill Pavilion were a mystery. Some said they were a powerhouse from beyond the Qingyun Empire, a force that dominated the entire Tianyuan continent. In this empire, they were the two biggest players in the pill business. Naturally, they were bitter rivals. But the St. Pill Pavilion always seemed to stay one step ahead, leaving the Qingyun Pavilion stuck in second place, simmering with frustration. Xia Yushan was a rising star within the Liyue City branch. Her father, Xia Lei, was the branch master. Her invitation to me wasn't just a random act of kindness. It was a calculated move. I looked at her elegant figure and nodded. In that case, I'll trouble you. Think nothing of it, she replied with a graceful smile. We might not be as large as the St. Pill Pavilion in some areas, but we welcome every guest who walks through our doors. Please. I stepped into her carriage, leaving the crowd behind as the excitement died down. Back at the St. Pill Pavilion, Sheng Qian watched us leave. He glanced at the unconscious Mo Chuan and snorted. Bring that boy inside. In the pavilion master's private room, Mo Chuan was still fuming. Master, Yi Wushuang is just a degenerate. He's acting strange lately, but he's nothing. Why should we fear him? Fear him? Sheng Qian cold-eyed his subordinate. Do you think I'm afraid? You've seen what's happened in the city lately. The Yun and Qin families want his head. Do you really think it's a coincidence that he dares to walk out of the Yi manor right now? Mo Chuan stammered, unable to find an answer. Sheng Qian continued, his voice low. He's only at the 5th level of the body refining realm, yet he managed to cripple Qin Shang, who was at the 7th. Yesterday, he was followed by a youth at the 8th level. Today, he's accompanied by a pulse-condensing expert. The Yun and Qin families can deal with him if they want, but we are here to do business. Why pick a side? He paused, his brow furrowing. And that's not even the most important thing. That pulse-condensing youth by his side. I feel like I've seen him somewhere in the imperial capital. I just can't place where. Mo Chuan shrugged it off. Whatever. His reputation is trash anyway. Let the Qingyun Pavilion take him. It only makes us look more elite by comparison. Sheng Qian didn't look convinced. I have a feeling this kid is going to stir up a massive storm. Meanwhile, the carriage rolled through the market and stopped before a solemn, grand entrance. This was the Qingyun Pavilion. Xia Yushan stepped out and gestured for me to follow. My reputation in this city isn't exactly great, I said with a faint smile. Aren't you afraid I'll bring bad luck to your business? She didn't stop walking, leading me and Su Chiyuan inside. A man who offends the powerful Qin family just to protect his sister? That's not the mark of a villain. Many people in this city know what the Yun family is really up to. But in this world, nobody listens to the weak. She looked back at me. If you were a heavenly pillar realm expert, the Yun family would change their story instantly. They'd claim Yun Xian seduced you and kill her themselves just to please you. Su Chiyuan chimed in. Young master, you would never do such a thing. It's all a frame-up. The truth will come out sooner or later. The main hall was bustling. It was crowded and lively, with staff handling customers at various windows. Even if they were second to the St. Pill Pavilion, they clearly held a significant place in the Empire's market. I haven't asked yet, Xia Yushan said. What does young master Yi need? Some herbs, I said directly, and a medicinal cauldron. Her eyes lit up. She turned to me with a bright smile. You know how to refine pills. I know a little, I replied. As the daughter of the branch master, Xia Yushan was sharp. She knew my history, from a famous genius to a waste, then to a supposed predator, and now to a cultivator who could challenge the Qins. Something was definitely different about me. Our herbs are cheaper than the St. Pill pavilions, she explained after a moment of thought. But a cauldron? A decent one costs tens of thousands of gold taels. Buying one outright isn't very cost-effective. Tens of thousands? I felt a slight jolt. I didn't have that kind of money. Su Chiyuan didn't hesitate. The price doesn't matter. I'll buy it for him. Xia Yushan chuckled. Actually, we provide cauldrons to alchemists for free. We only charge a small processing fee. If you're willing to sell the pills you refine to us, the use of the cauldron is completely free of charge. Su Chiyuan laughed. You're a good businesswoman. You give them a place to work, and you get a steady supply of pills. Everyone wins. I stayed silent, so Xia Yushan continued. Why don't you look at our cauldrons before you decide? I followed her to the back of the pavilion. The refining rooms were luxurious. Inside one, a bronze cauldron stood as tall as a man, decorated with carvings of winding flood dragons. I walked up and ran my hand over the metal. A grade 1 spirit tool, I noted. Correct, she said. If you are an alchemist, you can use this flood dragon cauldron for free. And as I said, selling your pills to us isn't a strict requirement. If you make 10 pills, you can sell us one, or all of them. It's up to you. I nodded. It was a smart way to build loyalty with alchemists. I had about 20,000 gold taels on me, but if I blew it all on a cauldron, I wouldn't have enough for the herbs I needed. I was at the 5th level of body refining now. I needed resources to push further, to help my sister build a foundation, and to heal my uncle's legs and my mother's drained health. I reached into my robe and pulled out a list. I'll need these. I looked at the list of ingredients in my hand. I need 3 portions of each herb on this list, I said. It shouldn't be too hard to find them. Xia Yushan took the slip of paper and smiled. Not at all. I'll have someone prepare them and bring them over immediately. She stepped out of the room, leaving me alone with Su Chiyuan. The old man was still hovering around me like a shadow. Young Master Yi, he said, leaning in. If you really like that cauldron, just say the word. I'll buy it for you right now. I gave him a flat look. He caught my drift instantly. All right, he muttered, waving his hands. I'll stop talking. Since you stood up for me earlier, I said, my voice softening slightly. I'll let you ask me 3 questions. His eyes lit up like a child in a candy store. Really? I nodded. He didn't waste a second, immediately firing off questions about spirit arrays that had clearly been bothering him for years. While I was answering him, Xia Yushan was walking through the pavilion when she ran into a middle-aged man. He wore an alchemist's robe, his long hair tied back, with streaks of white at his temples. This was Yahello, the master of Qingyun Pavilion and a grade 1 spirit alchemist. In Liyue City, his reputation was just as formidable as Mo Chuan's. Yushan, where are you going in such a hurry? He asked, amused. Father, she exclaimed. I found an alchemist. In this world, alchemists were divided into ranks. Mortal alchemists made pills for those in the body refining realm, while spirit alchemists served the pulse condensing experts. Who is it? Xiaolei asked. Yi Wushuang, from the Yi family. Xiaolei froze. Yushan, what nonsense are you talking about? Yi Wushuang. The kid who's been famous for all the wrong reasons lately? He couldn't even start cultivation for 3 years. I heard he had some lucky break and hit the 5th level of body refining. But an alchemist? Impossible. Xia Yushan grabbed her father's arm and laughed. Father, you're being too narrow-minded. Everything he's done lately has been shocking. If he can't actually refine pills, we still sell the herbs at a profit. But if he can, then Xinyan Pavilion just gained a massive ally. Xiaolei pondered this. Alchemists were rare and their status was sky-high. Fine, he said. I want to see for myself if this kid is a genius or a fraud. A short while later, Xia Yushan returned to the refining room, followed by several attendants carrying wooden boxes. Young Master Yi, here is everything you asked for, she said. The total comes to 7,200 silver taels. I checked the boxes. The quality was good. I pulled out the silver notes and paid her without a word. Then I won't disturb you, she said, bowing slightly. Please, show us your skills. She let her people out, but they didn't go far. They went into the observation room next door, watching me through a hidden partition. Inside the room, I wasn't in a rush. Su Chiyuan was sitting in the corner, his face twisted in deep thought. My answers to his 3 questions had hit him like a lightning bolt, and he was currently lost in a trance, trying to process the sudden enlightenment. I ignored him and turned to the cauldron. In this vast world, there were many professions. Alchemists, weapon masters, and array masters were the big 3. Every cultivator needed pills for growth, weapons for battle, and arrays for protection. There were others, puppet masters, beast tamers, but they were rare. For an alchemist, 3 things mattered: ingredients, formulas, and fire. The formula was the most precious, often worth more than 10 finished pills. As for fire, a cultivator could use their own internal energy, or they could merge with external sources like wood fire, beast fire, or even legendary earth and heaven fires. I stood before the flood dragon cauldron and placed my palm on its surface. I needed to feel the metal. I needed to find my old rhythm. Next door, Xiaolei watched me closely. Father, is it okay to watch? Xia Yushan whispered. Alchemists hate being peeked at. As long as we don't tell him, how will he know? Xiaolei replied. I just want to see if he's the real deal. I moved. My spiritual energy surged, swirling around the cauldron. With one hand, I suddenly lifted the 1,000-pound bronze vessel into the air. It hovered as if it weighed nothing. My other hand swept across the metal surface, and thin, pale flames began to flicker along the carvings. What is he doing? Xia Yushan asked, wide-eyed. Xiaolei's jaw dropped. This is impossible. Father, he's cleaning the cauldron, Xiaolei whispered, his voice trembling. Most mortal alchemists don't even know how to do that. Every time you use a cauldron, impurities are left behind. If you don't clear them, the next batch of pills will be trash. But cleaning it is incredibly complex. Even the method my own master taught me is crude compared to what he's doing. As he spoke, black and green residue began to flake off the cauldron, falling to the floor like dust. You can tell a master by their first move, Xiaolei muttered. This kid, he really has the skills. I finished cleaning the cauldron and moved on to the herbs, prepping each one with precision. Once everything was ready, I sat cross-legged before the flames, my mind clear and focused. It was time to begin. I was ready to begin. For this session, I planned to refine 5 different types of pills. 3 of them, the Qi refining pill, the bone-breaking pill, and the internal essence pill, were standard mortal-grade medicines. They corresponded perfectly to the 3 stages of the body refining realm, the lower, middle, and upper tiers. These pills were common, but essential. The Qi refining pill would help those in the lower stages, making it perfect for my sister, Yi Feifei, to build a solid foundation. The bone-breaking pill was exactly what I needed for my own current stage. As for the internal essence pill, that was for my future breakthrough into the upper tiers. Beyond those, I needed 2 specialty medicines, the bone reconstituting pill and the youth-preserving pill. The first was for my uncle, Yi Qingfeng, to heal his crippled legs. The second was a gift for my mother. I had no idea I was being watched as I worked. In the next room, Xiaolei and his daughter, Xia Yushan, stood frozen. At first, Xia Yushan found the process a bit tedious, but her father's expression shifted from curiosity to pure shock. This is impossible, Xiaolei muttered, his voice cracking. How can this be? Father, what's wrong? Xia Yushan asked, grabbing his arm. Xia Lei gripped her wrist back, his eyes wide with excitement. Yushan, you've brought me a treasure. I've been watching his technique. Even as a first-grade spirit alchemist, my control over the pill fire doesn't compare to his. And look at the yield. He pointed toward the cauldron. Normally, with 3 sets of ingredients, a master might produce 10 pills if they're lucky. But this kid? He just pulled out 30. That's a perfect utilization rate. Not even my own master could achieve that. He isn't just an alchemist, he's a genius. Xia Yushan didn't understand the technicalities, but she understood the weight of her father's words. Yi Wushuang wasn't just talented, he was a freak of nature. Xia Lei couldn't look away. He wasn't just verifying my skills anymore. He was shamelessly studying my every move. He was a high-ranking official in Liyue City, but in the grand scale of the Qingyan Empire, he was nobody. He wanted to reach the 2nd grade, and watching me was his best shot. It's like I'm watching a grandmaster who has spent hundreds of years immersed in the Tao of alchemy, Xia Lei whispered. He died and came back as something terrifying. After half a day of intense work, I finally finished. I had 30 each of the standard pills and 15 each of the specialty ones. My face was pale, and my energy was drained. Refining for a full day without rest took a heavy toll on my spirit. I turned to Su Qiyuan, the formation master who had been watching me in a daze. He had asked me 3 complex questions about first-level spirit arrays earlier, problems that even 4th-level masters couldn't solve for him. I had given him the answers with a few casual remarks. Arrays are mysterious, I told him with a tired smile. Sometimes you can't just think your way through. You have to try. Su Qiyuan stood up and bowed deeply. His respect for me had reached a new level. Young Master Yi, are you sure you won't take a disciple? If not, would you consider taking a godson who happens to be in the pulse-condensing realm? I ignored his strange request and walked out of the pill room. Xia Lei and Xia Yushan were waiting for me. The Flood Dragon Cauldron is excellent, I said, wiping my brow. It's very smooth. According to the rules of the Qingyan Pavilion, I need to sell a portion of what I make here. Here are 10 each of the qi, bone, and essence pills, plus 5 of the others. I handed the boxes to Xia Yushan. The youth-preserving pill doesn't just help with looks, it strengthens the constitution. You can have your alchemist appraise them and set a price. I'll check them immediately, Xia Lei blurted out, stepping forward with frantic energy. I blinked, surprised by his intensity. Xia Yushan gave a sheepish laugh. This is my father, the head of the Qingyan Pavilion and a first-grade spirit alchemist. I cupped my hands in a polite greeting. Xia Lei realized he was acting like a fanatic and coughed, trying to regain his dignity. I am an alchemist myself. I got a bit carried away. Please, let us go to the appraisal room. We sat around a table as Xia Lei opened the boxes. He used his spiritual energy to scrape a tiny bit of powder from the surface of a qi refining pill and placed it on his tongue. He did the same for the bone-breaking and internal essence pills. These were common medicines, which actually made them harder to perfect. Because everyone made them, the quality usually varied wildly. Xia Lei went silent. He stared at the pills, his face turning solemn. Father, Xia Yushan prompted. What is it? Xia Lei looked me dead in the eye. Young Master Yi, a standard qi refining pill goes for 100 silver taels. A bone-breaking pill is 300. An internal essence pill is 1,000. For yours, I will pay triple the market price for the first 2 and double for the third. What do you say? Xia Yushan stood there, mouth hanging open in disbelief. His father was actually offering to pay a massive premium for these pills. Father, he stammered, are you sure? A standard qi refining pill is only worth 100 silver taels. Even when we sell them, we only charge 120. If we buy them for 300, we'd have to sell them for even more just to break even. Who would spend that kind of money on a basic pill? Xia Lei didn't hesitate. I know what I'm doing. I'm certain. He turned back to me, his expression incredibly sincere. Young Master Yi, if you don't mind, I would like to formally invite you to become a guest alchemist for our Qingyan Pavilion. He explained the perks. As a guest alchemist, I would have total freedom. I could buy medicinal herbs from them at a 30% discount. In exchange, they would have the first right to purchase any pills I refined. Most importantly, I would carry the title of a Qingyan Pavilion alchemist, which meant I could stay at any of their branches across the entire Qingyan Empire. I wouldn't even have any specific duties or responsibilities. I raised an eyebrow. The offer was tempting, but I stayed silent, letting the tension hang in the air. Seeing my hesitation, Xiaolei doubled down. If you provide enough pills, your status within the pavilion will rise. And the Qingyun Pavilion will go out of its way to assist you with certain matters. He knew exactly what kind of trouble I was in with the other families. He was offering me a shield. Xia Yushan looked like he'd seen a ghost. He couldn't understand why his father was offering such legendary terms for 3 types of common pills. Even Su Qiyuan was impressed. He leaned over and whispered that the Qingyun Pavilion was backed by the imperial family and was currently struggling in a bitter rivalry against the Sacred Pill Pavilion. They were clearly desperate for talent. Xiaolei watched me with eyes full of hope. If I joined them, the Qingyun Pavilion would finally have the leverage they needed to crush the Sacred Pill Pavilion in Liyue City. Headmaster Xia, I said with a faint smile, you haven't even checked the other 2 types of pills yet. I'm sure they are extraordinary as well, Xiaolei replied quickly. We can check them later. Young Master Yi, please consider my offer. In this empire, only the Sacred Pill Pavilion and my Qingyun Pavilion can offer you these kinds of terms. I can promise you this. If you join us, the Yun family and the Qin family won't dare touch a hair on your head. He was genuinely anxious. He was a first-grade spirit alchemist. He knew quality when he saw it. These common pills I had made were 3 times more potent than anything on the market. He couldn't fathom how I had achieved such perfection. Headmaster Xia, young Master Yi, he interrupted, his voice dropping to a low, serious tone. I know the Yi family is in a difficult spot. You are one man trying to protect everyone. If you agree, I can secretly dispatch several body refining realm warriors to guard your family. That was the clincher. I didn't care about titles, but I cared about my mother and sister. Fine, I nodded. I'll be your guest alchemist. But I don't like being restricted. I expect you to keep your word. Xiaolei beamed, looking like he'd just won the lottery. He immediately moved to the last 2 boxes. The bone-setting pill and the youth-preserving pill were rare, even for him. After a thorough inspection, his excitement reached a fever pitch. The bone-setting pill could repair broken bones in an instant, as long as they weren't completely shattered. This could easily sell for 10,000 silver taels, Xiaolei whispered. But we shouldn't just sell it. We need to auction it to maximize the profit. As for the youth-preserving pill, the noble ladies of the city will pay any price for it. He rubbed his hands together. We will auction these too. The pavilion will take a 10% commission, and the rest goes to you. How does that sound? Agreed, I said. We settled the bill for the other pills. Between the qi refining, bone breaking, and internal essence pills, the total came to 32,000 silver taels. I took the banknotes and left the building with Su Qiyuan. As we walked down the street, Su Qiyuan looked at me like I was a god. Young Master Yi, you're a master of formations and alchemy. Is there anything you can't do? Don't tell me you're a master of qi cultivation too. I just smiled and kept walking toward the Yi Manor. I made sure to stop at a stall to buy 2 sticks of candied haws for Fei Fei. The Yi Manor was in the old district of Liyue City, a quiet area with few residents. But as we turned into the narrow alleys, the silence became unnatural. The streets were completely deserted. Su Qiyuan's brow furrowed. He sensed it too. Young Master Yi. I know, I said softly. We stepped into a wider street, but there wasn't a soul in sight. I raised my voice, my tone dripping with cold sarcasm. You've been following us the whole way. If you don't move now, I'll be back at the manor. It'll be too late for you then. The moment the words left my lips, shadows flickered. 12 figures emerged, blocking both ends of the street. Even in broad daylight, they wore black night suits, clutching swords and sabers. Which family sent you? I asked with a smirk. The Qins? Or the Yuns? They didn't answer. The 2 leaders at the front and back stepped forward, their auras exploding. The pressure was heavy. 9th level body refining realm. In Liyue City, anyone in the upper 3 levels of body refining was considered a powerhouse. Sending 2 9th level experts meant they were truly desperate to see me dead. Yi Wushuang, your time is up, the leader in front growled. You should have stayed hiding in your house. Since you crawled out, don't dream of going back. Kill them. They were professionals. No more talking, just cold steel. Suchiyuan stepped up beside me, ready to show what he could do. Take the 2 9th-level leaders, I commanded. Leave the rest to me. You got it. Suchiyuan laughed, launching himself forward to intercept the experts. One of the assassins gasped as he felt Suchiyuan's power. The information was wrong. It's a trap. Retreat. You think you're leaving? Suchiyuan roared, pinning them down. I turned my attention to the remaining 10 men. 6 were at the 6th level, and 4 were at the 7th. They really didn't think much of me. I clenched my fists, my muscles coiling like springs. Tiger claw. I lunged forward, my hands hooking into deadly talons. I didn't dodge. I didn't hesitate. I dove straight into the group of 10, the air around me booming with the ferocity of a hunting predator. I locked onto a 6th-level body refining practitioner. He threw both fists forward, meeting my charge head-on. In a flash, my hands transformed into lethal tiger claws. I gripped his forearms, the sound of snapping bone echoing in the street as I tore through his flesh. He screamed, stumbling back, completely neutralized in a single move. Back off, a 7th-level expert barked. 4 of them suddenly swarmed me. I stayed calm. With a flick of my wrist, the Tianya sword appeared in my hand. A faint sword light flickered at the tip. 9 heavens, sword script. I thrust the blade forward. It moved like a drifting cloud, soft and powerless at first. But as the strike extended, the momentum exploded into something sharp and unstoppable. The leader of the 4 smirked, thinking I was weak. He pulled a dagger, spinning it so fast it seemed to multiply into 9 blades, clashing against my sword. Clang, clang. The collision was violent. His dagger shattered under the weight of my sword chi. His face went pale, and he tried to retreat. I wasn't about to let him. 2 other 7th-level assassins lunged from my sides, their blades aimed at my vitals. I didn't back down. I didn't even look at them. I kept my focus on the man in front of me, but my free hands shifted. I executed 2 different moves from the Tiger Roar technique simultaneously, one with each fist. Thud, thud. My fist slammed into the 2 attackers on my flanks, stalling their momentum. At the same moment, my sword pierced the chest of the man in front. I twisted the blade, and the sword chi exploded inside him. His eyes widened, his life fading as he stared at me in disbelief. 6th brother, the others screamed. They were stunned. They were 4 7th-level experts who had fought together for years, yet I had just killed one of them while being surrounded. Nearby, Suchiyuan was absolutely dominating the 2 9th-level leaders. A body refining practitioner stands no chance against someone in the pulse-condensing realm. Retreat. Run now, one of the leaders yelled. You think you can just leave? I sneered. I raised my sword. Mountain breaker. I poured everything into a single point. The air trembled as a terrifying force gathered. It wasn't just strength, it was an intent. Sword seed. One of them shrieked in terror. He's realized a sword seed. Puchi. The sword chi tore through his body, leaving a bloody hole. A 5th-level cultivator like me shouldn't have been this strong, but with the power of a sword seed, my lethality doubled. Within minutes, the street was silent. 10 bodies lay in the dirt, their breathing stopped. Suchiyuan walked over, dragging the 2 9th-level leaders by their collars. Young Master Yi, what do we do with these 2? I looked at them coldly. Who sent you? We lost, one growled. Kill us, or do what you want. We aren't saying a word. It doesn't matter, I said, turning away. It's either the Cheens or the Yuns. Kill them. Suchiyuan didn't hesitate. He snapped their necks instantly. He looked at me, his eyes glowing with curiosity. Young Master Yi, how many secrets are you hiding? Formations, alchemy, and now you're a sword seed genius? Even in the imperial capital, people like you are 1 in 10,000. You'll find out eventually, I replied. We left the bodies for the crows and walked back to the Yi residence. As we reached the gates, I took a deep breath, letting the killing intent drain away. I forced a smile. Suchiyuan stopped at the entrance, staring at the air. There really is a grand array here. A grade 1 spirit array? Wait, the runes look ancient. This wasn't always grade 1, was it? It's the 4 spirits heavenly sparrow array, I said casually. It was once a grade 4 array, capable of killing heavenly pillar realm experts. But after centuries of neglect, the runes are damaged. It'll probably only last another month. Su Chiyuan rubbed his hands together, looking like a kid in a candy store. Even a broken grade 4 array is rare. Young Master Yi, can I stay here for a while? I want to study it. You can stay. Great. I won't stay for free, he promised, grinning. I'll be your bodyguard. I guarantee no one in Liyue City will touch you while I'm around. I looked at him and nodded. Honestly, I wasn't afraid of the Yuns or the Qins. Even if a pulse-condensing expert came for me, I had ways to escape. Once I reached the 8th or 9th level, I wouldn't fear them at all. That was the confidence of a former emperor. But Su Chiyuan wasn't a bad guy, and his talent for formations was decent. I didn't mind giving him a few pointers. Suddenly, a small head popped out from behind the front door. Brother, Yi Feifei ran out, her face lighting up when she saw me. She tackled me in a hug. Look what I got you, I said, pulling out the Tonghalu. I knew you wouldn't forget, she chirped. I opened the paper wrap, only to see the candied hawthorns were crushed from the fight. I scratched my head, embarrassed. Sorry, next time, I'll bring you better ones. She took a bite and smiled sweetly. If it's from you, I love it. She was a smart kid. She knew I had been in danger, but since I was back safely, she didn't ask questions. This is Su Chiyuan, I introduced him. He's a friend. He'll be staying with us to help keep the house safe. We walked inside. The servants I had hired were busy cleaning, and the Yi residence finally looked like a home again instead of a ruin. We all gathered in the main hall. My mother, my sister, Uncle Yi Qingfeng, Old Man He, and Su Chiyuan. For the first time in a long time, the house felt alive. To my family, Old Man He wasn't just a servant. He was one of us. I looked at my little sister, Feifei, and pulled out a small wooden box. When I opened it, 20 qi refining pills lay inside, round and glowing with a faint, fresh aroma. These are qi refining pills, I told her. Starting today, I'm going to teach you a meditation technique. You'll practice every day to draw spiritual energy into your body. Use these pills as you go. Take one every 10 days. Do you understand? Feifei took the box, her small face lighting up with excitement. I will. I'm going to become a warrior even stronger than you, big brother. Next, I pulled out another box containing 10 essence internalizing pills. I turned to Su Chiyuan. You're at the 8th level of body refining. These 10 pills are perfect for you. I'll leave it to you to decide how to pace your intake. Su Chiyuan took the box and nodded solemnly. Then, I handed a third box to my mother, Lu Yueme. Mom, these are 10 youth-preserving pills. They won't just improve your appearance. They'll strengthen your constitution and health. She took the box, a gratified smile spreading across her face. Finally, I turned to my uncle, Yi Qingfeng. Uncle, I've refined 10 bone reconstitution pills for you. They will fix your frame, but since your leg has been broken for so long, it will take time to heal. Once your leg is back to normal, I'll find a way to fix your depleted lifespan. Yi Qingfeng's hands trembled as he took the box. His eyes turned red, and he struggled to keep his voice steady. Wushuang, I really don't have to die. I can really get better. For the first time in ages, the heavy cloud of despair over the Yi family lifted. We sat together, feeling a sense of peace we hadn't known for years. My family knew this hope only existed because of what I had done, but they didn't need to say it. However, while my home was filled with joy, the Yun family was in a dark mood. Inside a courtyard at the Yun estate, Yun Xingyue's face was pale with rage. She stared coldly at a guard kneeling before her. All 12 of them are dead, she asked, her voice icy. Yes, the guard whispered, head bowed. The brothers Wang Su and Wang Chong were both at the 9th level. Killing Yi Wushuang should have been easy, but a young man, maybe 19 years old, appeared by his side. He's in the pulse-condensing realm. He killed the brothers. As for Yi Wushuang, he killed the other 10 himself. He used a sword. His swordsmanship was incredible. I didn't dare get too close, but I saw it. Shut up, Yun Qingyue snapped, crushing the teacup in her hand. Hot tea spilled over her fingers, but she didn't seem to feel it. How is that possible? The Yi family must still have some ultimate treasure hidden away. That boy came back from the dead, and his strength exploded. It's too strange. What does the Qin family say? The Qins have contacted their main clan in the imperial capital, the guard reported. But it will take a month for their experts to arrive. A month, Yin Qinghua whispered. That's enough. No matter how talented he is, he'll only reach the 6th or 7th level in a month. He won't be a match for a pulse-condensing expert. I thought I was the one playing him, but it turns out Yi Wushuang was playing me. If he doesn't die, I'll never have peace of mind. Just then, a servant entered the courtyard. Miss, young Master Qin Hao is here. Yin Qinghua immediately suppressed her killing intent. She smoothed her dress, put on a heart-melting smile, and walked out to meet him. Brother Hao. A tall young man in black robes stood outside. This was Qin Hao, the rising star of the Qin family and the most talked-about genius in Liyue City. He looked at Yin Qinghua with clear adoration. Why are you here? She asked sweetly. I heard that in a month, instructors from Qingyun Academy are coming to Liyue City for recruitment, Qin Hao said with a confident smile. Liyue City usually isn't worth their time. It's happening because of me. My clan arranged it to build momentum for my return to the main lineage. The Qin clan has deep roots in the academy. Arranging a recruitment drive is easy. Qin Hao wasn't just talented. He had awakened the Qin family's bloodline power. In this world, bloodline power was the ultimate gift. It made him a once-in-a-thousand-years genius. Then I should congratulate you in advance, Brother Hao, Yin Qinghua said. You'll be the star of the show. I hope I can perform well enough to join the academy with you. She paused, her expression turning concerned. How is your Uncle Qin's injury? Qin Hao's eyes darkened. His arm won't ever recover. Even after he heals, his strength will be halved. We underestimated Yi Wushuang. But don't worry. When the academy instructors arrive next month, several pulse-condensing experts from my clan will be with them. Even if the Yi family has some secret protection, it won't matter. We'll crush their shell, and Yi Wushuang will die. That's good to hear, Yin Qinghua sighed, leaning against him. Brother Hao, I used to be engaged to him. Does that bother you? Qin Hao grabbed her hand, looking into her eyes. How could I be so narrow-minded? That dog isn't fit to be in the same room as you. Once I enter the academy, I'll become the youngest Heavenly Star Realm expert in the Empire. I'll give you the best of everything. I believe you, she whispered, a smirk playing on her lips as she tucked her head into his chest. Back at the Yi residence, I was in the backyard looking at my uncle's leg. The bone in his lower left leg was twisted at a gruesome angle. It was a sickening sight. The Qins will pay for this, I said coldly. Qin Yun is dead, my uncle said, trying to comfort me. That's revenge enough. It's not enough, I replied. The debt they owe us is much larger than one leg. Uncle, I can fix this. I'll use the bone reconstitution pills and my own energy to reset the bone and nourish it. It will heal. But first, I have to snap the bone back into place. It's going to hurt. You'll have to endure it. Yi Qingfeng burst out laughing. Kid, are you looking down on your uncle? I was almost a pulse-condensing expert once. If it weren't for my life force fading, I'd be a powerhouse by now. What's a little pain? He paused, looking at me with eyes full of pity. Compared to having all your meridians severed like you did, this is nothing. I didn't waste any more time. I gripped his leg and moved. A second later, a scream like a slaughtered pig echoed through the backyard, loud enough to shake the walls. A long while later, I walked back to the front yard, wiping my hands. My mother saw me and hurried over, looking worried. Wushuang, what happened? Is your Uncle San okay? I coughed awkwardly and looked at her with a helpless expression. He fainted from the pain. Oh, she gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. It's fine, Mom. Don't worry, I reassured her. In a few days, Uncle will be able to stand up on his own again. Lui Weme looked at me, her eyes filled with a mother's lingering anxiety. You need to take care of your own body, child. Don't push yourself too hard. I'll say it again. If things get too dangerous, we can just take the whole family and leave Liyue City. I gently took my mother's hands in mine and smiled. Don't worry, Mom. The ones who should be leaving are them, not us. No one escapes the debt they owe the Yi family. Everyone who took something from us will have to pay it back, piece by piece. She reached up, her palm brushing against my cheek. I only care about you and Fei Fei growing up happy. We will, I promised. Everything is going to change. I left her and walked through the compound. In one room, Xiao Yuan was deep in concentration, practicing the demon spirit palm I had given him. It was a yellow grade technique with 7 forms that perfectly matched his bloodline. He was obsessed. Meanwhile, Su Chiyuan was glued to the ancestor's statue, staring at the spiritual runes flowing from it like he was possessed. I found old Kai in a corner of the front hall, quietly directing the servants. When he saw me, he bowed deeply. "Young master." "Old Kai, come with me. I have something to say to you." My tone was serious. I led him back to my room and closed the door. Old Kai looked fidgety, shifting his weight from one foot to the other as I sat down. "Master, did I do something wrong?" he asked nervously. "No," I said, a small smile breaking my serious facade. "Old Kai, do you remember your real name?" He froze. A look of confusion washed over his face. I only know that I've been in the Yi household since your father's time. Before that, your grandfather's time. Even your great-grandfather's. As for how long exactly, I can't remember. It's been too long. Many things have faded away. Everyone calls me Old Kai. I don't even know what my name is anymore." I looked at him intently, my gaze settling on his blind left eye. "In that case, let me tell you who you are." Before he could react, I raised my hand. A blood-red seal condensed in my palm. I slammed it directly onto his blind eye. Old Kai let out a blood-curdling scream. In that instant, our consciousnesses were pulled into a mysterious, shared mental space. Within this void, Old Kai's hunched, frail body suddenly straightened. He no longer looked like a withered servant. He stood tall like an ancient pine tree, radiating a sense of weathered power and sorrow. Images began to flash before my eyes. Old Kai's memories. I saw a 4-year-old boy, orphaned and begging on the streets. He was being brutally beaten by a wealthy brat for accidentally staining his expensive clothes. The boy was dying. Then, a teenager appeared. He looked 17, sharp and commanding. It was Yi Wentian, my own 9th reincarnated soul. Yi Wentian saved the boy and took him under his wing. They traveled the Qingyun Empire together. I watched the Yi family grow from just 2 people into the most powerful clan in the empire. The boy, whose name was Yi He, grew into a man. But Yi Wentian never seemed to age. He remained a youth, frozen in time. One day, Yi Wentian sat Yi He down. "Yi He, you followed me for years. There are things you need to know." "Sir, what is it?" Yi He asked, sensing the gravity of the moment. "I am not from the Qingyun Empire," Yi Wentian said solemnly. "I am Yi Wushuang, from the Wushuang heaven of the 10 great realms. I was betrayed and sealed away for eternity. But there is a way out. I used a divine technique to split my soul into 9 parts. Each part reincarnates to break the seal. But a soul cannot survive outside the body forever. My 9th soul, this body of Yi Wentian, can no longer hold me. I must sleep and wait for my true spirit to return and reclaim this power." Yi was speechless, his face pale with shock. "I have a plan," Yi Wentian continued. "I will seal your memories and your cultivation. You will stay with the Yi family and wait. Wait for my spirit to be reborn in this empire. When I return to claim my 9th soul, I will find you. I will break your seal, and we will meet again." Yi fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "My life belongs to you, sir. My power was taught by you. I will wait for your return, no matter how long it takes." Then, Yi Wentian vanished. I watched this with a calm heart. These were the experiences of my past self. But what came next was what mattered. I needed to know how the Yi family fell so far after I went into hibernation. After Yi Wentian's body died, he had stored his soul within the statue in the ancestral hall, waiting for me to arrive with the 9-layered, God-resisting pagoda. Yi He, his memories locked away, became the man known as Old Kai, a simple servant watching the years go by. With the protection of Yi Wentian gone, the other families in the empire lost their fear. They began to plot. I saw familiar faces, the leaders of the great clans who used to grovel at my feet. The moment I was gone, they struck. They swallowed the Yi family's businesses. They murdered hundreds of our kin. They hounded my family until we were forced to flee the capital and rot in this backwater city. Then, I saw the deaths of my grandfather and my father in this life. And I saw the secret, the real reason the Yi family was dying out. It wasn't just external pressure. Every member of the Yi family was dying mysteriously by the age of 40. I had suspected it when I looked at my own condition, but seeing Old Kai's memories confirmed it. When my 9th soul was Yi Wentian, I had developed a powerful bloodline talent, the devouring bloodline. It allowed us to absorb the energy of spirit beasts and rival warriors to grow stronger. But while the other families were tearing us down, someone had gone deeper. Someone had secretly stripped the bloodline spirit from every single member of the Yi family. As a former emperor, I knew exactly what that meant. Without the spirit, the bloodline becomes a curse that eats the host alive. The reason a descendant can awaken their ancestor's bloodline depends entirely on one thing: the bloodline spirit. When a powerful warrior leaves behind a legacy, that spirit lives within the veins of their children. If the talent is high enough, a descendant can trigger that spirit and unlock unimaginable power. It is the core of our strength. But if that spirit is stripped away, awakening becomes impossible. It's worse than just losing power. Without the bloodline spirit, a warrior's vital energy loses its soul. The blood stops flowing with life and begins to rot from the inside out. That was why the men of the Yi family were dying so young. They weren't just sick. They were empty. For 500 years, my family had been systematically destroyed. It wasn't just the great clans of the Qingyun Empire ganging up on us to steal our businesses or kill our kin. There was something much darker happening in the shadows. A group of mysterious, powerful figures had been hunting us. They didn't just want us dead. They had been reaching into our very bodies and tearing the bloodline spirit out of every single member of the Yi family. They had turned our greatest gift into a death sentence, ensuring that no one would ever rise to claim the glory of the unrivaled heavenly emperor again.